Chapter 62 Climax Part 3. At this moment, Feng Jiao also felt that Xianyuan Haoyu wasn't as terrifying as when he entered the room. It was just that his strong command made her extremely unhappy. The splashing water dampened his black hair and clothes, outlined his perfect body with a golden ratio. His back was strong, and his wet hair was plastered to his back. Beads rolled down the back and dripped onto the wooden floor. Are you all right? Feng Jiao yawned lazily. Seeing that his whole body was quivering so intensely, she couldn't help but ask out of concern. As long as you don't approach a chapter, I will be fine. Xianyuan Haoyu wrinkled his eyebrows. He was still trying his best to force out the tea he just drank. Then you take care of yourself. I'll be sleeping now. When you leave, remember to close the door. Feng Jiao coldly answered, pursed her red lips and walked towards the bed, then fell asleep. When Xianyuan Haoyu felt that he was becoming increasingly unable to control the heat rising in his body, he smiled with determination, his smile dazzling. Could it be that the woman sleeping on the bed nearby was really the girl whose fate was being his? When all his rationality was under the control of the drug effect, Xianyuan Haoyu leaped up from the wooden floor, took off his wet clothes, exposed his dazzling and perfect body. He looked resolutely at the sleeping girl on the bed and walked quickly towards her. May she was an alerted assassin. How could she not know that danger was upon her? Hence, she waved the white crystal jade hairpin in her hand. Fortunately, she felt that he wasn't normal tonight and had prepared a protective item. Your Highness King of Jing, it's late at night. Why are you still here? Feng Jiao vaguely felt that there was something wrong with his eyes. It was determination and persistence that she had never seen in his eyes before. I'll stay tonight. After these words had been said, his life and hers would be closely intertwined, and the future entanglement would be even more difficult. What? Stay? Feng Jiao was dumbfounded. She immediately scratched her ear and asked uncertainly, what do you mean by that? It means literally. At this moment, Xianyuan Haoyu's bright red eyes were filled with intense lust. Then I'll go out. When Feng Jiao saw the look in his eyes, and the reaction just now, she immediately reacted. Luckily, she had slept with her clothes. Hurry up and run. The little lamb had turned into a big gray wolf. It's too late. The tea was drugged by someone. You're the only woman here, and you're the one I like. When we return to Xianyang, I will ask father to marry you as my first wife. Regardless of whether it was her or the prime minister behind her. He wanted them all. But I don't want to be your wife. How about this? I'll ask Minkin to go to the brothel and get girls to help you deal with it. Feng Jiao blinked her beautiful eyes and immediately said, Minkin again? What's so good about him? Go to the brothel to find the girl? You have truly looked down on me. I am virgin. Looking for a girl from the brothel, it would be my loss. Xianyuan Haoyu was already too lazy to waste words with her. He fiercely threw himself at her, tearing her clothes apart. Feng Jiao's blood immediately boiled after he described the word virgin. So he was pure, so she didn't need to hesitate anymore. Besides, right now, she was saving his pain and his life. Being the first wife or not was not important right now. La la la. The wonderful journey began. The instant their bodies connected, he screamed in his heart. He wanted her. He wanted her. He wanted her. Her love skills made him feel a mysterious desire to die, as if he had ascended into the clouds. Her body, her enchapteranting fragrance, her chapter arm, everything about her, made him feel more comfortable than he had ever felt before. Wanting one more time wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. Night. Suddenly, torrential downpour came with big wind. Li Minkin looked out the window at the rain and thought to himself, perhaps she wouldn't come tonight. Young Masterly, something bad. Young Masterly, something bad. The guard Tu Liang Chapter's voice rang out from outside. What happened? Ensued Chapter a panic? What should we do if we disturb King of Jing's rest? Hearing a knock on the door, Li Minkin hurriedly walked to the door and opened it to scold him. After drinking some tea, a few soldiers suddenly felt their lower bodies swell up terrifyingly. They kept yelling that they need girls. What should we do? Tu Liang Chapteru was unlucky enough. He was the one in chapterarge of those soldiers. Are there any brothels nearby? We have to keep this a secret from Xianyang. Li Minkin's eyes flickered as he hurriedly said, "Yes, I understand. Then I will take my leave." At the beginning, Tu Liang Chapter wanted to report to Xin Yuan Haoyu, but he thought that if the prince was sleeping at this time, he couldn't disturb him. He happened to see the light on in Li Minkin's room, so he came over. We must report this matter to the king tomorrow. Even though they are just a few soldiers, it's a serious matter." Li Minkin felt that this hotel was a little strange, especially that storekeeper who looked like a wanderer in the martial arts world. He didn't look like the storekeepers of other hotels, who were shrewd and astute. Suspicious, very suspicious. After Tu Liang Chapter left, Li Minkin extinguished the candle flame and prepared to sleep. However, after he heard the rumbling thunder, he could no longer sleep. He was very worried about Feng Jiao, so he tossed and turned, unable to fall asleep. After 2 hours, the drug effect finally passed. Xian Yuan Haoyu lowered his eyes to look at the girl in his arms, his eyes filled with satisfaction. Letting out a soft sigh, he took off the rose he longed for. This little girl really a sleeper. Then he would go to sleep with her, the cutie in his arms. Xian Yuan Haoyu fell asleep with a satisfied smile on his face. Or perhaps it's happiness. Last night, a heavy downpour washed everything on the ground. Early in the morning, rays of sunlight shot through the window and sprinkled across beautiful Baoxan town. With the melodious sound of birds chirping, the sun slowly climbed up with golden yellow sunlight into the sky, adding an unparalleled beauty to the already poetic scenery. Li Minkin was unable to fall asleep, so he woke up very early. Fortunately, the soldiers were rescued. Otherwise they would have been in danger. Strange, how could the tea provided by the hotel contain aphrodisiac? Did someone do it on purpose? After Li Minkin thought of this, his eyes flashed with a dark light. Sunlight shone through the thin paper window onto the body of the persons on the bed. Last night, Xian Yuan Haoyu held the beautiful lady and slept well. This was the first time since the death of his mother that he slept so sweetly, and with Su Chapter ease. At this moment, his ink-black hair was somewhat loose, with a few strands hanging down to cover his phoenix eyes, creating a layer of shadow on his face. Under the golden sunlight, his purple clothes had a faint halo. Her white and slender fingers caressed Feng Jiao's white face. Wuxia Chapter was as smooth as white jade. Her burning gaze never left her body. Feng Jiao moved his hand away. "Eric, don't wake me up, let me sleep for a while." Perhaps she had slept too deeply, and had forgotten that she was currently in a different time and space. "Eric? Who's Eric? Yao, wake up? Who's Eric?" Hearing the strange name, Xian Yuan Haoyu's heart was filled with curiosity. "But who?" "Eric, that's my pet cat." "Oh, who are you?" Xian Yuan Haoyu?" "Yao, don't look at me like that. You saved me last night. After I return to Xianyang, I will ask my father to bestow a marriage upon us. I want to marry you as the first wife of King of Jing. It could be considered a man's promise." "No, I don't need an imperial edict." Feng Jiao sat up as the quilt slid down, revealing a large area of her body. "Why didn't you need an imperial edict?" He looked at her as she sat up, revealing her enchapturating beauty. He quickly withdrew the complicated emotions from his phoenix eyes, and a faint smile appeared on his lips. Did she not care that she had given him her first night? Even though he did not see the legendary red mark, that was not important. What was important was that he had her. And that was enough. Feng Jiao lifted up her long hair. Kiss marks were on her shoulders, her eyes faintly swept around. Did he not care about that she was not virgin? He actually even asked for an imperial edict to bestow a marriage? "You're not my first man." She didn't want to lie to him. Also want to take this opportunity to get out of trouble. "What did you say?" Xian Yuan Haoyu thought he heard wrongly, and thus he asked uncertainly. But why was his heart chaptering a little? Was it because of careness? Feng Jiao withdrew her gaze, her pretty eyebrows slightly raised, and her clear and intelligent eyes remained calm without any ripples. Lifting his eyelids, he elegantly leaned back on his pillow, slightly turning his head to look at the man beside him. Her gaze clearly fell on Xian Yuan Haoyu. But Xian Yuan Haoyu didn't feel any attention at all. He felt a little cold, because sadly he could not feel her heart. "Last night was not my first night. So you still want to ask your father for marrying me?" as king of Jing's first wife? Feng Jiao faintly said. Hearing this, Xianyuan Haoyu's heart chaptered painfully. Could what she said be true? No, it must not be true. Didn't she reject him last night? No. The girl he liked was not a slut. You're lying. Xianyuan Haoyu's phoenix eyes were like deep pools, tightly looking into her beautiful eyes as he growled. It's true. You should know the reason why your seventh brother decided to cancel the engagement, right? Remember? Unchapterastity. Xianyuan Haofei said that I'm unchapterastity. Feng Jiao thought that if the ancient women talked about this matter, they would definitely burst out into tears. So she immediately thought about it for a while. And then her eyes actually started to fill up with tears. That's because seventh brother has problem. I'm not him. I'll treat you well. Yaoa, even if you are unchapterastity, you didn't belong to me before last night. You are my woman now, so I won't give up on you. Xianyuan Haoyu thought about how he had finally fallen in love. How could he give up on her? What? You don't care if I'm unchapterastity? Was their Su chapter a stupid man? Feng Jiao thought maybe he was stupid, or she had heard wrong. I don't care. I can't participate in your past, but your present and future will all belong to me alone. Xianyuan Haoyu felt that ever since the death of his mother, he had been alone. Now aside from the throne, she was the only one he cared about. But I'm the woman your seventh brother gave up. If you ask the emperor for an imperial edict, it won't be good for your reputation, right? The royal family cares about reputation the most. Please give up the idea of marrying me. Reputation can be created. My Yaoer is unique, and without exception, I'm going to have Yaoer's heart for sure. Xianyuan Haoyu's confession was truly unique to her. Feng Jiao's mouth twitched upon hearing it. She was finished. She had really gotten herself into trouble with the royal family. I don't have a heart. Feng Jiao rolled her eyes at him. She didn't even know where her heart was. Yaoer. Xianyuan Haoyu frowned. Xianyuan Haoyu, it's just a romantic affair? You want me to take responsibility? Feng Jiao raised her eyebrows as she mockingly looked at Xianyuan Haoyu with an ice-cold gaze. She actually said that it was just a romantic affair, but she was indeed half right. The other half was his sincerity towards her. How could she so mercilessly kill it? Was he nothing in her heart? Not even comparable to a pet? She actually called out its name in sleep. Xianyuan Haoyu felt an unprecedented stab of pain in his heart. But in the next instant, his smile became magnificent. Turning his body, he hugged her, caressing her face with his white and slender fingers, before slowly placing broken kisses on her face one after another. How could she be so calm? Let him kiss. Feeling his strong manly aura, her brows slightly raised, her eyes like silk. What? Do you want to do it again this early in the morning? Hearing her words, Xianyuan Haoyu's subordinate paused for a moment before pressing his lips against her ear and laughing softly. Yaoer, you have been my woman for one day, then you will always be mine. The smile on his face deepened. And then what? You swear you will never take a concubine? Seeing his determined expression, Feng Jiao could only laugh. Chapter 63 Love Mark. Xianyuan Hao Chapter in Part 1. Never have a concubine? As a member of the royal family, how is that possible? But after having concubines, I won't two-chapter them. I can guarantee you that, and I will do it. Yaoer, believe me. His long, shiny fingers danced a waltz on her smooth jade-like shoulders, and his fingertips felt her skin as tender as a baby's. His eyes flashed with a deep and serene light, and looking at the kiss marks on her body, he happily smiled. These were the marks of love that he had left to her last night. What do you want to do about has nothing to do with me? Feng Jiao got up absent-mindedly, wanting to put on her clothes and quickly eat the contraceptive pill. Fortunately, she had some. She sighed in her heart. She actually used it after having sex with Xianyuan Haoyu. However, she was not responsible for this. Isn't it just a one-night stand? As for what Xianyuan Haoyu was thinking, that was his personal matter. It had nothing to do with her. A complicated look flashed across Xianyuan Haoyu's eyes. Even if he wanted to take responsibility for her, she didn't need it. What are you doing there? I'm hungry. After speaking, Feng Jiao quickly jumped off the bed and neatly put on her clothes. Just when Feng Jiao took out the pill bottle, and was about to pull out the stopper, Xian Yuan Haoyu suddenly felt an ominous foreboding. What do you want to eat? Xian Yuan Haoyu suddenly realized that something was wrong. He rushed forward to snatch after the white jade bottle from her hand. Contraceptive pill. I will not bear a royal heir. So I have to eat this pill in order to ensure it. So give that bottle back to me. Feng Jiao's cold voice sounded in the silent room. You. What's wrong with having my baby? I will not allow you to take this pill. No matter how gentle a man was at this moment, he was unable to calm down. With a strong grasp, the white jade bottle and the pill in his hand instantly turned into white powder, flying in the air and falling to the ground with a rustling sound. Seeing his actions, Feng Jiao's lips curved up into a faint smile. You destroyed this bottle, so what? I have ways of not getting pregnant. You should know the famous snow epiphyllum planted in our Prime Minister's mansion. One petal sterile for life. His smile gradually turned cold, making people unable to feel any happiness. They could only felt as if they were in the dead of winter. Why? Xian Yuan Haoyu felt the bone-piercing pain he felt when his mother's died. Now, after experiencing it once more, he could even feel his heart bleeding. This was the first time that he actually fell in love with a girl. But she cared so little about his responsibility, his heart. Even though his heart was bleeding from the pain, his face still maintained a graceful smile. He was unwilling to hit her. Why did she say all this to break his happy thoughts? There's no why. If I really want to make you give up, then I will answer you. I don't believe in true love. After all, to her, sex first, then love. He should be well aware of this. Even your baby, you can't have it? He looked at her expectantly, hoping she would shake her head. That's impossible. The baby shouldn't been born into this world. Feng Jiao raised her eyebrows and said coldly, Feng Jiao, you are too heartless. He grabbed her wrist and tried to shake her awake. Whatever you say. You'd better get dressed and come out. I'll go downstairs for food. Feng Jiao felt that there was no need for her to pursue this question with Xian Yuan Haoyu. Damn it. This was the only bottle of contraceptive pill she had brought with her. Damn it, hope she was lucky. It would be better to go to the medicine store later to buy some for backup. Eldest miss, was that the voice of King of Jing just now? How did he? It could be a hallucination, right? Ziyin remembered that she was a servant girl, and he couldn't ask Tu Mu chapter about this master. Thus, she subconsciously shut her mouth. Ignore him. Let's go downstairs to eat first. At this moment, Feng Jiao was glad that Ziyin slept in the next room. That girl had always slept well. She must have heard nothing about what happened last night. But Ziyin hesitated. She wanted to say something but stopped. No, but let's go downstairs for breakfast. Feng Jiao finally suppressed Ziyin's curiosity with roar and coercion. Xian Yuan Haoyu looked at Feng Jiao's cold back figure. She emotionlessly closed the door. He felt his heart wrench after in pain, cold tears flowing down his face. Feng Jiao's words just now were like a sharp sword stabbing into his chapterist, riddling him with wounds. Feng Jiao, since you are already my woman, then you can only bear my chapterilt. When we return to Xianyang, at the Blue Festival, you and I will get married. Xian Yuan Haoyu remained silent for a while, clenching his teeth, and quickly leaving this room. There was a voice supporting him in his heart. Do not give up. He knew that he was not an easily tempted man. Now that his heart had been moved, he could not bear to let her take over. From then on, he would be the ruler of her life. Within the room on the second floor of Feng Yin Hotel. Minqian, I'm sorry for last night. I was too tired and fell asleep. Feng Jiao had to lie to Li Minqian. Then, did you sleep well? Li Minqian looked at Feng Jiao with suspicion, as she suddenly chapter-arranged into a dress with lotus petals. He felt it was strange but couldn't ask in detail. I was talking about the lightning and the rain. Did you sleep well? Li Minqian cleared his throat and added, I slept well. How about you? Feng Jiao lowered her eyes, not daring to look him in the eye. After all, she was the one who broke the promise first. Not good. Some soldier's tea was added medicine last night. He thought for a moment and decided not to say it in Tu Mu chapter detail. So he just say it was medicine. Medicine? Strange, the tea in her room had also been drugged. Could it all be aphrodisiac? Can you tell me what kind of medicine the soldiers have in their tea? Feng Jiao slowly took a bite of the crystal dumpling, seemingly asking indifferently. In fact, she was a bit nervous. It's a type of medicine that can strengthen man's power. Li Mingqian was urged to answer the question. However, when he spoke, his handsome face was still flushed red. Li Mingqian, is what you said true? At this time, Xianyuan Haoyu suddenly appeared at the entrance of the room. His complexion was the same as before, and although he was smiling, the smile didn't chapter his eyes. He couldn't be blamed for this. The woman he cared about was actually smiling like a flower at another man. This made him feel as if he had swallowed a dead fly. It's true. Li Mingqian nodded with great certainty. Then I need the report immediately, Xianyuan Haoyu said while elegantly drinking a small bowl of porridge. We found out. It was did by a waiter in this hotel. But 1 hour ago, that waiter was killed by someone. Li Mingqian frowned. If we were to report this to the local officials, they might not be able to find out. I'll trouble you to investigate yourself. With your ability as the sole chapterace Manor's young master, there shouldn't be any problems. For some reason, Xianyuan Haoyu's words sounded a little ironical. It made people feel uncomfortable. All right, Mingqian will find out who is behind this as soon as possible. Li Mingqian was stunned for a moment. Strange, Xianyuan Haoyu had always been polite to him, but now it seemed as if there was a gap between them. He was truly baffled. How could Li Mingqian understand that there was a woman between the two of them? Feng Jiao. Mingqian, do you know why I wanted you to investigate this matter thoroughly? When Xianyuan Haoyu asked this question, he turned his sharp gaze towards Feng Jiao, who was eating a crystal dumpling. Just as Li Mingqian was about to reply, he heard Xianyuan Haoyu chapteruckle in a low voice. However, he used a private voice skill to say, because last night, the tea in her room was drugged aphrodisiac by someone. What? Aphrodisiac? Then, Li Mingqian looked at Feng Jiao and bitterly swallowed his saliva. He asked with great difficulty. At this moment, his heart was nervous to the point that it was chaptering into a ball. I had something to do last night, so I went to look for her. Who would have thought that I mistakenly drank that tea? And thus, Xianyuan Haoyu didn't continue speaking. Instead, he thoughtfully looked at Feng Jiao once more. But who was Li Mingqian? He was so smart. When he heard Xianyuan Haoyu specifically use private voice skill to tell him why Feng Jiao had not come to meet him last night, he only knew that his heart was in great pain, as if all the strength in his body had been sucked away. Mingqian, what's wrong with you? Chapter 63 Love Mark. Xianyuan Hao Chapter in Part 2. In the dark of the night, an ordinary carriage drove slowly on the wide street. Why are we leaving Suyong so late at night? How could Feng Jiao not be angry? While she was sleeping well, Xianyuan Haoyu woke her up and told her to get into the carriage. Isn't it good to go back to Xianyang earlier? Xianyuan Haoyu lazily leaned, squinting his eyes. His long eyelashes made some shadow, causing his handsome face to flash with dazzling light. A pair of hands as perfect as jade flipped the books. That's good, but aren't you a bit too hurry? Last time, you said that you wanted to enjoy the scenery all the way back. Feng Jiao didn't forget the conversation they had that day, going to Bai Ma Temple. Someone wants to kill me. Xianyuan Haoyu specifically raised his head to look at Feng Jiao, hoping to see some worried expression in her eyes. Unfortunately, he didn't see anything. So what? The old emperor didn't care about family planning, so his sons would kill chapter other for the throne. Yaoa, you're so cold-blooded. Xianyuan Haoyu's brows wrinkled even more. He had expected her to be nervous at least for a moment, but he hadn't seen the expression he wanted to see. She was the golden killer of Night Demon, so she was cold-blooded. Hearing this, she gave a non-committal smile before continuing to sleep with her eyes closed. The following journey was very smooth. Feng Jiao had spent it all in sleeping and eating. Seeing that Feng Jiao didn't really want to talk to him, Xianyuan Haoyu didn't say anything more, but the way he looked at her became even more determined. Far away, the crown prince's mansion occupied a huge piece of land. It was luxuriously decorated, with dragons and phoenixes carved. It was filled with countless exotic flowers and plants. The crown prince, Xianyuan Hao Chapterin, lowered his head to look at the naked wife Gu Exaner's alluring body, W chapter was glowing with passion. This was an in-chapterenting body. As a man, of course he would like it. But when he thought of Gu Xiner's goal and actions, he couldn't help but feel angry. What? Why can you not get hard today? Gu Xiner swept away the usually gentle and virtuous expression, and instantly chapter-arranged her expression. The arrogance in her eyes was even full of disdain. Gu Xiner, how long are you going to force me? Xianyuan Hao Chapterin was angry, hysterical. When you become the rightful emperor, they get angry at me. Gu Xiner coldly glared at Xianyuan Hao Chapterin, not putting him in her eyes at all. Gu Xiner, you. Oh, I feel bad. Oh, Xiner, my good Xiner, give me the 5-stone powder. Give it to me. Xianyuan Hao Chapterin chapter-arranged from his usually handsome and unrestrained appearance, immediately collapsing on the bed in pain. Perhaps it was because the range of his movements. His tall and thin body fell and rolled on the ground, letting out a painful cry. You haven't served me well yet, how can I give it to you? Gu Xiner walked towards him unblemished, but then she chaptered down and sneered. I beg you, my good Xiner, hurry up and give me the 5-stone powder. I feel so bad right now, so bad. At the same time, Xianyuan Hao Chapterin wanted to resist this drug that would make him addicted to it, but he painfully tried to take it. At this moment, he hated himself for his uselessness, hated his credulity, and hated his helplessness. Oh, then let me think. How will you serve me, then I could be happy? Gu Xiner's beautiful eyes flashed with a sinister light. Xiner 5-stone powder, please give it to me. Xianyuan Hao Chapterin was still kneeling on the ground, kowtowing in front of her. Gu Xiner looked at Xianyuan Hao Chapterin and smiled complacently. Of course she was happy. His Highness the Crown Prince, who was usually extremely noble in front of others, had actually knelt to her. Gu Xiner, how could she not be happy? You want the 5-stone powder? Gu Xiner slowly rose to her feet. Her movements were graceful, but in Xianyuan Hao Chapterin's eyes, they were filled with hatred towards this sort of elegance. She was clearly the adopted daughter of Internal Affairs Minister Gu Zhendong. However, her body was imperceptibly exuding the domineering aura of imperial clan. This made him hate her to death, but he had no chapterois but to rely on her Gu family's influence. After all, his mother was dead, and his uncle, the Ingwe Duke, had returned to his hometown. Even though his father deeply loved his mother, it would be quite troublesome for him to successfully inherit the throne. No matter if it was his 4th or 7th brother or 9th brother, they were all coveting his father's position. Yes, good Xiner, give it to me. Xianyuan Hao Chapterin nodded with a trembling voice full of anticipation, inwardly resenting himself for not getting rid of this drug addict. Wuxia chapter also seemed to be on the verge of becoming more and more serious. Io, my toes are stained with dust, hurry up and lick them clean for me. Gu Xiner's delicate eyebrows rose, and she sat on the bed, extending her jade-white toes and perfectly appearing in front of Xianyuan Hao Chapterin. Xiner, no, I am the crown prince. How could? Xianyuan Hao Chapterin was so angry by Gu Xiner's words that he was about to explode. However, he had a request to ask of her right now. Thus, he begged for mercy in a low voice. You are the crown prince, so what? In my eyes, you are nothing but a puppet. Gu Xiner didn't listen to him at all. A puppet? Xianyuan Hao Chapterin laughed loudly, full of tears and mucus. In the end, he was still addicted to it. He couldn't hold on any longer, so he slowly crawled towards Gu Xiner, stuck out his tongue, and really licked Gu Xiner's toes. Gu Xiner felt very excited at this moment. She laughed out loud. So what if he was the crown prince? For the sake of the 5-stone powder, he, Xianyuan Hao Chapterin, chapteriply knelt down and licked her toes. Gu Xiner didn't see Xianyuan Hao Chapterin lower his eyes, and a hint of endurance flashed through his eyes. Very comfortable. Here, there's only one today. Swallow it. Hurry and come up. Gu Xiner finally nodded in satisfaction. She'd taken out a red pill and handed it to the shivering Xianyuan Hao Chapterin. After Xianyuan Hao Chapterin swallowed that red pill, the effects quickly removed the discomfort on his body, giving him a lively look. Xiner, I recovered. At this moment, his little Hao Chapterin was being controlled by the red pill. If he didn't release his burning lust at this moment, Then he would be in even greater pain and suffering later on. Yes, Gu Xiner had long since laid down on the bed, still naked. On the bed covered in a golden blanket, Xian Yuan Hao Chapterin was like a ferocious beast, doing Gu Xiner times until the effects of the pill faded away. After the last round, he slowly stood up, grabbed a white clothes from the ground and put it on. Then, he leaned against the resting chapterer. His black hair scattered about, and his snow-white collar was half open. "Why don't you sleep here?" Gu Xiner thought that he would sleep beside her tiredly. "Just now, I received a letter from Su Yang saying that their mission to assassinate ninth brother failed. Do you think I can sleep tonight?" After recovering his strength, he was once again the high and mighty crown prince, Xian Yuan Hao Chapterin. Gu Xiner snorted disdainfully. He really thought that he was above everyone but the emperor. He had so many brothers, he might not even know how would he die in the future. Before her father achieved his goal, she still had to let him ascend to the throne. "You have to sleep even if you can't. Tomorrow, we will go and pay our respects to royal father." After Gu Xiner finished speaking, she covered herself with the quilt and went to sleep. "Don't sleep yet. It'll be the Blue Festival in a few days. Does your father not have any words?" Xian Yuan Hao Chapterin recalled that Gu Zhendong seemed to have said that he wanted to make his own daughter, Gu Layer, to be his concubine, so he asked, "What can he say? Could it be that you've taken a fancy to my little sister Layer?" Gu Xiner suddenly removed the quilt and looked up at his elegant face. "Other than you, who else can I fancy? The other women are just putting on a show." Xian Yuan Hao Chapterin smiled, but his smile didn't chapter his eyes. On the day he and Gu Xiner got married, he already knew that she was not virgin. What the hell did he like about her? He just worried about her Gu family's influence in the imperial court. He was truly cowardly. Ever since he and Gu Xiner got married, he didn't dare to go to the concubine's place to sleep. Occasionally, he could only find a pretty palace maid while greeting his father. "It's good that you know." Gu Xiner laughed arrogantly, flipped over and slept. Seeing that Gu Xiner's breathing became calm, Xian Yuan Hao Chapterin put on his yellow embroidered robe and walked towards his own bedroom, the Morning Light Palace, with his hands behind his back. He had been back from Su Yang for 2 days. In the begonia garden, Feng Jiao was lying on the bed with her eyes closed, resting. The warm morning sun shone on her fair and beautiful face, spreading a faint halo of light. Pink begonia petals drifted down with the wind, rippling on her inky black hair, encircling and fragrant, making people's hearts feel refreshed. "Miss, the third miss is asking for a meeting outside the door." Ziyin stepped forward slightly to report. "No, tell her to scram as far as she can." Feng Jiao remembered what Feng Jiqiong did, and her impression of these concubines' daughters of Prime Minister's mansion became even worse. Therefore, she naturally didn't want to meet Feng Jilin. "Yes, Mississippi." Ziyin gently flicked his sleeves and walked out with a smile. After time of burning half an incense stick, Ziyin returned. She said, "Third miss didn't lose her temper. She left obediently. She's smarter than Feng Jiqiong." Feng Jiao suddenly opened her eyes and gently smiled. Ziyin nodded. Third miss indeed seemed to be a little more shrewd than second miss Feng Jiqiong. "Ziyin, I'm going to the Jiuyin temple to pray today. You don't have to stay with me anymore. I'll give you 1 day break." Feng Jiao raised her eyebrows and smiled. "Eldest miss, what do you mean by break?" Ziyin was confused when she heard Su chapter a strange word. Thus, she asked with a baffled expression, "I'm just letting you rest for a day. Do you understand?" Feng Jiao remembered that she was still in the ancient times, so she quickly explained it to Ziyin with a smile. "Understood." Ziyin smiled and nodded. So that was what the word break meant. Feng Jiao turned around and went inside the room to chapter-range into a long white dress. It was a long yet powerful brand chapter that was embroidered on the cloth with sandalwood silk, and on it were bright red plum blossoms. From the hem of the dress to her waist, a wide dark purple belt outlined her slim figure. It also gave people a sense of elegance. She wore a slightly pale blue dress, and her every move revealed the beauty and chapter arm. Feng Jiao's lily-white fingers were twirling a piece of lip color. She elegantly placed it in front of her red lips and gently pursed it. Immediately, Her red lips became tender and bright, dazzling. Eldest Miss is so beautiful. Ziyan couldn't help but praise her. Is that so? Hee. Feng Jiao smiled. She was as beautiful as the blossoming of thousands of pear flowers. An hour later, an ordinary carriage drove out from the Prime Minister's mansion. It was the lowest grade carriage, covered by a blue curtain. However, the owner of the carriage was extremely happy. The reason why she dressed up so beautifully to go to Jiuyin Temple was for a person. A man who lived in Jiuyin Temple, Li Jinran. Eldest Miss, this is preserves from Zhangsheng store here. Wang Sanzi, the COA chapterman, did not know why the noble young miss wanted him to buy the preserves. But since the young lady had given him the silver, he had to do it. All right, you don't need to do anything now. Wait for me at the foot of the mountain. I'll go down in 4 hours. Feng Jiao gracefully got off the carriage while taking a bag of preserves from Wan Sanzi's hands. Yes, miss. Wan Sanzi did not expect the young miss to be so amiable and smiling at him like a spring breeze. Give me the preserves. Thank you. Take the excess silver. I heard that you are a fealty son. Consider this as a reward from the me. After Feng Jiao finished speaking, she turned around and walked up the mountain. Looking at Su Chapter, a kind and lovely young lady, a trace of warmth flowed through Wan Sanzi's heart. Su Chapter, a gentle young lady. Why doesn't that bastard king of Qi want her? In the past few days, his mother had fallen ill and was in need of money to get a doctor. Feng Jiao's smile became wider as she walked, smelling the fragrance of the pear blossom. Today, because it was not the 1st or 15th day of a month, there were very few people came to Jiuyin Temple. Feng Jiao went to ask a monk who was sweeping leaves. Little young master, does that young master Li Jinran still live here? I don't know. A trace of vigilance flashed across the eyes of the little monk, wearing a gray monastic robe. He hurriedly said. Then he slightly clasped his hands together and saluted to Feng Jiao, before walking to another place with the broom in hand. Feng Jiao was very depressed because she had asked several monks, and the answers she got were all the same. They were all 3 words. I don't know. All right, since this group of bald donkeys didn't want to tell her, she decided to find Li Jinran by herself. Chapter 64. Su Mayan got jealous. Part 1. This purple pill. If a woman takes it, her internal energy and beauty will increase. If a man takes this pill, his internal energy will backlash. Even worse, his features will become that of a woman, and his meridians will explode and die. That would be suicidal for me. Tao Zhixin quickly explained. Oh, so it's like that. It has the effect of keeping you beautiful. Then I'll eat it. Of course, she hoped that her beauty would attract more pretty men. Otherwise, how could she realize her dream of eating all the pretty men in the world? At the moment when Tao Zhixin was stunned, Feng Jiao had already taken the purple pill without hesitation and swallowed it. Eldest Miss. Noticing that she had eaten it and her face was filled with pain, Tao Zhixin hurriedly shouted out. Feng Jiao was sweating profusely. She was in extreme distress. Uncle Xian, is here a place to bathe? Pick a reliable maidservant to serve me. Feng Jiao quickly ordered. By the way, Uncle Xian, is there really no problem with the pill? She was a little afraid now, so she asked. No, it's said that there's also a miracle ingredient for purifying the spinal in there. There definitely won't be any problems. Eldest Miss, please hold on. Tao Zhixin hurriedly retreated and called for a reliable maidservant. The maidservant was thick-browed, large-eyed, and had a muscular back. She looked very sturdy and valiant. Eldest Miss, this little girl's name is Lv. She's strong. So how about letting her carry you to the flower stream pool for a bath? P. Chapter String said quickly, and gave Lv a hint. N. At this moment, her only thought was to take a bath. Her body was wet, and it was really too uncomfortable. After Lv received the order, she immediately smiled and said, Eldest Miss, this servant has knelt down. Then she bent down and waited for Feng Jiao to climb on her back. As expected, this girl was born with great power, so she easily carried her to the flower stream pool. The flower stream pool was located behind the building. It was a huge natural outdoor hot spring, in the shape of a fan in front of the moon lake. As the wind blew past, crabapple blossoms began to fall, Some pink or white crabapple blossoms floated down, floating above the steaming hot spring. The white mist rising from the pool water was like immortal smoke. It was so beautiful that it made one feel relaxed and happy. However, Feng Jiao didn't have the mood to look at this beautiful scene. She ordered LV Zhu to turn around. LV Zhu, no one will come here, right? Eldest miss, please rest assured. This place is secluded, so no one will come here. Besides, I will guard this place wholeheartedly. LV Zhu answered in a neither haughty nor humble manner. Then she lowered her hands to her sides, her entire body entering a state of vigilance. Thank you, LV Zhu. Feng Jiao thanked with her modern habits, then quickly took off her clothes that were drenched in sweat. Eldest miss, this is something that a servant should do. When LV Zhu heard this, a warm feeling flashed through her heart, but her face remained indifferent. An hour later, Feng Jiao was dumbfounded. She looked at the perspiration that kept oozing out from her body, and it was murky sweat. It caused the entire flower stream pool to change from crystal clear to gray, causing her to be petrified. Eldest miss, why are you so quiet? Seeing that it had been quite some time since she last heard the sound of the eldest miss's bath, LV Zhu asked worriedly. LV Zhu, turn around and help me. When Uncle Xian had called her over to carry her, LV Zhu had prepared a large moonlight silk yarn in advance, ready to be used at any moment. Ah, eldest miss. As soon as LV Zhu turned around, she wanted to give Feng Jiao the white silk, but stopped the next second. The white silk she held in her hands fell to the ground as well. Her mouth opened several times and became even bigger, before finally saying, Miss, you're so beautiful. But now, Feng Jiao's facial features was like being meticulously sculpted. Her skin was delicate and pink like soft water, and her jade-white body was like a porcelain of high quality. She was as beautiful as silk, exuding a kind of exquisite and pure beauty. Amidst the lingering steam, it added a sense of mysteriousness to the flower in the fog, as if it were a hibiscus in water, blended together with a myriad of elegance, making it a magnificent sight to behold. The silky black hair that was like a waterfall with a few slivers of mischapterif slid past her round and fragrant shoulders. The moisture was mixed with an infinite amount of sex appeal. She was so beautiful to shook one's soul. LV Zhu, how did you stutter? Didn't this girl talk fast just now? Eldest miss, I saw you were too beautiful, so. LV Zhu mumbled as it bit its lower lip. Really? I've become more beautiful? Could it be that that lousy pill really has a face-preserving effect? Feng Jiao mumbled to herself. Seeing LV Zhu nodding, she quickly asked, LV Zhu, did you see the water turn black? Eldest miss, why didn't I see it? Isn't the water clear? LV Zhu looked towards the direction Feng Jiao pointed, glanced at it for a few times, then slightly shook his head. Ah, God, how did the water become clean again? Feng Jiao couldn't figure out how the water became crystal clear again, but her heart was filled with doubts. All of this proved that this Tsuha house was a bit strange. WA chapter also aroused her interest. Okay, since she was now the owner of this Tsuha house, she wanted to clarify these things. Eldest miss, don't catch chapter a cold. Quickly put it on. Seeing that Feng Jiao had ungracefully let out a sneeze, LV Zhu hurriedly picked up the moonlight silk from the ground that she had just dropped. Feng Jiao raised her hand and took it, put it around her body. After LV Zhu took Feng Jiao to the study room of Tao Zhixian, he looked at Feng Jiao, who was dressed in this way, and opened his mouth wide in surprise. It's amazing. Eldest miss, you've become so beautiful. Excitement could be seen in his eyes. He could even see another she through Feng Jiao. That's right, thank you, Uncle Xian. Can you let LV Zhu buy me a dress at the clothing store? I can't leave with this after a while, can I? If she did wear it, it would be truly astounding. Tao Zhixian then remembered. Eldest miss, that cabinet is full of the previous owner's dress. If you don't mind, you can put it on first. You can chapter-arrange it when LV Zhu bought back the clothes. Pointing with his finger, Feng Jiao took the initiative to open the buckle of an exquisite box, inlaid with ruby-colored agate. Inside, there were various clothing sets. EA chapter of WA chapter was exquisite and elegant. EA chapter with its own characteristics. Feng Jiao nodded. She was very satisfied with it. Then there's no need for LVju to buy. The clothes here look very new. I'll wear one first. Anyway, the Prime Minister's begonia garden had a lot of clothes. In this regard, Feng Jiao didn't pay too much attention to it. As long as her clothes were beautiful, it was fine. Yes, miss. Tao Zhixian and LVju both nodded. With the help of LVju, Feng Jiao put on a crimson dress with butterflies and swallows. She walked out of the white jade carving of the hibiscus screen. It's simply tailor-made for eldest miss. Tao Zhixian smiled, a flash of trance between her eyebrows. The eldest young lady really did look like her. Beautiful? Hee. Feng Jiao laughed happily. She didn't expect that her clothes had the fragrance of a butterfly or chaptered on them. Tao Zhixian and LVju both nodded and laughed. LVju, you can leave first. Tao Zhixian then remembered that eldest miss had taken the purple pill. He had to open her run and do meridians in order to allow eldest miss's inner strength to be fully integrated. After LVju left, Tao Zhixian said, Eldest miss, do you feel completely comfortable? And I feel that my body has become chapter lighter. Uncle Xian, the water in the flower stream pool even chapter-range color before. It's actually so dark that it's scary. Feng Jiao explained to Tao Zhixian what had just happened. Congratulations to eldest miss for your rebirth. After the run and do meridians are opened, eldest miss can start practicing martial arts. Hearing this, Tao Zhixian immediately knelt down happily. He was overjoyed. Uncle Xian, don't kneel to me anymore, I won't get blessed. Feng Jiao unhappily rolled her eyes. It's better if you hurry up and open my run and do meridians. If she needs to learn, then learn. At least, in the future, she could save some energy when pouncing on a pretty boy. If Tao Zhixian knew what Feng Jiao meant by that, he would most likely be angered to death. He worked so hard to help her open up the run and do meridians, but the eldest miss was actually trying to pounce on the pretty boy. Yes, Mississippi. Hearing her words, Tao Zhixian immediately sat cross-legged on the ground, asked Feng Jiao to do it too. Feng Jiao imagined herself practicing yoga at this moment. She could only endure the pain, and still hear the sound of her bones cracking. After wasting half an hour, she run and do meridians were opened. Eldest Miss's bones are already extraordinary. You are a rare martial arts genius. Tao Zhixian nodded repeatedly in praise. Those are all kinds of martial arts manuals collected by the previous master. May I ask what kind of martial arts do you want to practice? He added. What kind of martial arts manuals do you have for me? When Feng Jiao saw all the traditional Chapteranese chapter actors, she was immediately confused. She thought for a while, and then smiled lightly. There's the King Kong finger, rippling steps, shadow-shifting sword. He spent the time of burning an incense to read through the yellowed ancient books. That Uncle Xian, can I pick 2 books at random? Feng Jiao yawned. She was too tired today, plus, she hadn't eaten Luan chapter yet, so her mood was a little dejected. Of course you can. Tao Zhixian nodded. In the future, these ancient books will all belong to eldest Mississippi naturally. Eldest Miss could do as your wish. Strange, why don't you look at the books? Feng Jiao was confused. If she was the one guarding so many martial arts manuals, she would have secretly practiced it herself. But why was he so honest? Eldest Miss, I had already taken clear crane powder. If I learn other martial arts, I can only learn moves. When facing an enemy, I will not be able to use any of their abilities. It's a waste. This is why the previous master entrusted this place to me to manage without worry. He narrated the whole story. What? Clear crane powder? It can't be. There are so many secrets in this building. Feng Jiao was completely confused. Suddenly, she felt that the command in her arms was very hot. Yes, when my master let me learn that skill, he fed a clear crane powder to me. Thus, I cannot betray the sect, and must not learn other martial arts. There was no resentment in his eyes towards his master, but deep sense of nostalgia. It's like that. Oh, then I will first learn light skill. Feng Jiao thought about how Yi Weiyang and the others could fly like airplanes, so she was very envious. Naturally, she had to learn light skill first. Eldest Miss, this is the ripple steps, the so-called light skill that Eldest Miss talked about. Tao Zhixian handed ripple steps to Feng Jiao. Uncle Xian, why don't you read it to me? Reading these words seemed to be tired, so let him read them. After he had finished reading, Feng Jiao actually memorized it without missing a word. Eldest Mrs. Shura remembers. Tao Zhixian's face was full of admiration. He not at all. Feng Jiao giggled happily. From tomorrow officially practice. What do you think, eldest miss? Hearing Feng Jiao's stoma chapter growl, Tao Zhixian thought to himself, it's too difficult for eldest Mississippi. It's almost dinner time. Alright, I'll go back first. I'll come back tomorrow morning. Feng Jiao smiled and agreed. She thought to herself that the driver, Wan Sanzi, must be anxious. Won't you leave after dinner? Tao Zhixian asked, distressed that the eldest young lady was hungry. Thank you, Uncle Xian. It's better to be a little hungry. Keep my slim figure. Feng Jiao was more optimistic. However, she had not already chaptered her limit of hunger. The limit was if she could swallow a cow. Eldest Miss is so humorous. Tao Zhixian held his beard and smiled, then switch chaptered on the Mi-chapteranism, and left the luxurious study with Feng Jiao. Before bidding farewell, he also handed Feng Jiao 2 pieces of osmanthus cake. Chapter 64. Su Mayan got jealous Part 2. On the open space outside Suha House, the driver Wan Sanzi stared at Feng Jiao's figure from afar, but he didn't dare to call out. Why? Of course, it was because Feng Jiao had chapter-ranged 2 Mu chapter. Yes, eldest miss? Wan Sanzi was even stuttering. Of course it's your eldest miss. Sanzi, I'm sorry for keeping you waiting. You must be hungry. This was a osmanthus cake that I took from Tsua House just now. It's still hot, quickly eat it. Seeing him standing there foolishly, Feng Jiao naturally heard the sound of his stoma chapter growling. She quickly handed the remaining osmanthus cake to Wan Sanzi. Eldest miss, your Su chapter a nice person. Wan Sanzi was indeed hungry and honest, so he took it, gave his thanks and wolfed down his food. Opposite the building was the 3 Flavors Library of the Beitang family. Currently, within the room by the window on the 2nd floor, Beitang Ziqian was playing chapteress with Su Mayan. Mayan, I've won another one. Beitang Ziqian's slender fingers gently pin-chaptered the white chapteress in his hand. With his other hand, he elegantly held the white jade teacup, took a sip and chapteruckled. Ziqian, your chapteress skills have improved a lot recently? Did you get a lot of rare chapteress book? Su Mayan asked with a smile. How do you know I've got a rare chapteress book? Wait, is that Feng Jiao? It seemed like after days, she had grown even more beautiful. She's talking and laughing with a young driver. He turned his head to the side for a moment, and a teasing look appeared on his face. However, the black chapteress in his hand was still chapter-racing closely after the white chapteress. The moment his gaze landed outside the window, he saw Feng Jiao, who was talking to Wan Sanzi. Feng Jiao? When Su Mayan heard this name, his eyes flashed slightly. However, when he heard Beitang Ziqian mention that Feng Jiao and a young driver were talking, a trace of gloominess flashed across his face. Seriously, who wouldn't be easy to hook up with? Why does it have to be a lowly underling? Originally, Su Mayan was not in a good mood after losing the chapteress game. Now, seeing Feng Jiao happily sitting in the carriage, he became even more furious. However, his face remained calm. Ziqian, what do you mean by this? Su Mayan was a smart person. After hearing what Beitang Ziqian said, he immediately guessed that there was a hidden meaning behind his words. He turned his head to look outside the window, but Feng Jiao was already nowhere to be seen. It was most likely dinner time. She must have gone back to the Prime Minister's mansion in the carriage. Mayan, you still don't know, right? There is no virgin mark on your cousin's arm. Why are you looking at me like that? Of course I saw it, my sister saw it too. She saw it that day by the Great Jade Lake, as well as King of Qi and Situ Yele, including an assassin by her side. When Beitang Ziqian saw that Su Mayan's expression had turned slightly cold, he couldn't help but shiver. Feng Jiao didn't have the virgin mark? Then who did she give her virginity to? After thinking about this, Su Mayan no longer had the interest to quietly sit down and play a game with Beitang Ziqian. Ever since his cousin Xiong'er became Xianyuan Haofei's concubine, he rarely went to the Prime Minister's mansion. Could it be that this time, should he go there to see Feng Jiao? See or not? Wait, Ziqian just said something about an assassin. Assassin? Mayan, why aren't you saying anything? You have something on your mind? Beitang Ziqian was curious. Why was it that when Feng Jiao had just been mentioned, Su Mayan became weird? Ziqian, it's almost dinner time, I should take my leave. I'll ask you to play chapteress with me some other day. Su Mayan smiled as he stood up to take his leave. Alright, I'm really sorry about what happened just now. You're in a bad mood because I mentioned that woman's name. Hee, Beitang Ziqian smiled. He did not know why, but when he saw Feng Jiao talking and laughing with the young driver, he felt an indescribable discomfort in his heart. In the end, he attributed it to that woman being nasty, a type he hated. That was why he felt uncomfortable when he saw her. Yes, that must be it. Beitang Ziqian was trying to convince himself. Su Mayan went downstairs and walked out of the entrance of the Three Flavors Library. He was hesitating whether he should go to the Prime Minister's mansion to meet Feng Jiao. At last, he remembered that Feng Jiao had a girl who cooked delicious food. After thinking about it, he mounted his Mount Snowflake and whipped in the direction of the Prime Minister's mansion. At the Begonia Garden, Eldest Miss, you're back. This servant is worried that you have not eaten outside. The food we just cooked has been heated up a few times already. When Ziyan saw Feng Jiao come back, she was the happiest. After she was done, she realized that Feng Jiao was a little different. Ziyan, I'll eat it now. Quickly bring out all the good food and wine. Feng Jiao was hungry. Naturally, she had to urge for food. Eldest Miss, you chapter-arranged your clothes? Oh, how beautiful your skin is. It's just like how you usually say it's as delicate as a flower petal. It's like a baby's snowy skin or something. Ziyan spoke up in an awkward manner. In the end, that little girl was extremely happy. Hee, these clothes are newly bought. Regarding skin issues, that's because I'm good at caring myself. Feng Jiao remembered Uncle Xian's words and smiled embarrassedly. Then she casually gave an excuse and replied. Very quickly, the 4 maidservants brought all 4 dishes and soup that Ziyan had prepared. Eldest Miss, these dishes were made according to the specifications you mentioned. Why don't you try it and see if it suits your taste? Ziyan gave the delicate silver chapterupsticks to Feng Jiao with a smile. Normally, the dishes you cook are too many and too tasty, so I control myself and don't dare to eat too much chapter. Those days in Suyang, I ate big fish and big meat every day. Look, I got fat. Feng Jiao thought about Su Yang's trip and realized that she had become a little fat. Although these are ordinary dishes, they are very exquisite. I like them very much chapter. Thank you girls, you are truly considerate. Feng Jiao was so moved that her eyes almost filled with tears when she saw the simplest winter melon soup. God, she could finally live a carefree life again. Eldest Miss, the gatekeeper came to report that young master cousin from the mighty heavenly castle wants to see you. Do you want to see him? Chapteriner, one of the 4 maidservants, heard the knocks on the door. She hurriedly walked to the front courtyard, took a look, and came back to report. No, let him go away. Feng Jiao thought about her past with Feng Jiqiong, and the day he asked her to break her own tendons. She didn't forget that she was a very vengeful person. Eldest Miss, this isn't good. You see that the old master did not blame the second young master for the matter with the second madam. It can be seen that the old master thinks highly of him. Perhaps he has some urgent business to discuss with Eldest Miss at this time? Ziyan thought back to how mighty heavenly castle was playing a very important role in the Nanshao kingdom. He came in this hours, it was really curious, so she boldly went up to persuade her. Then chapteriner, why don't you invite him into the guest hall? Feng Jiao looked at Ziyan for a while, then slowly smiled. Okay. At this moment, she was full to the brim with food and wine. If someone came looking for her, then don't blame her for being vicious. Su Mayan stood with his hands behind his back within the elegant guest hall, as his heart spun 1,000 times. Only when a faintly discernible fragrance passed through his nose did he turn around and look towards the door. A figure slowly walked over while carrying a light behind her back. Su Mayan couldn't help but hold high breath as he chaptered her walk in. At that instant, it was as though he saw the fairy that was in the wind. Transparent silver silk, crimson red butterfly dress, a strand of black hair hanging by her ears. Only the top of her head was tied with a white crystal jade hairpin with a simple and elegant bun, and her back was also covered by inky black hair. Her face was as exquisite as jade, and she didn't put on any makeup. Her captivating red lips and thick eyelashes accentuated her pair of mesmerizing eyes, making others feel as if they were sucked into a bottomless abyss and couldn't help but sink deeper and deeper into the pit. Su Mayan couldn't help but stare blankly at Feng Jiao. This was the first time he felt like he couldn't breathe. He felt that there was a beauty in front of him that had been reborn, an absolute beauty that transcended the mortal world. Young Master Su, why did you come to the garden late at night to meet me? Feng Jiao chaptered his eyes fall on her face. Thus, she coughed a few times to remind him before she asked indifferently, "Since when did you and I become so unfamiliar, Cousin Jiao?" When Su Mayan heard Feng Jiao call him Young Master Su, a trace of displeasure flashed across his face. If she could chapterette happily with a low-level carriage driver, why wasn't she smiling at him at all? You are Feng Jiqiong's cousin, not mine. I hope you can figure this out. Feng Jiao said with a faint smile. Why did he come to her at this time? What exactly do you want to tell me? Please hurry up, my time is of the highest value. Feng Jiao said with raised eyebrows. Ziyin stood at the entrance. When she heard her eldest miss speaking so arrogantly, she couldn't help but feel a bit worried for her. Last time, I saw this girl's porridge was very delicious, so, can you give this girl to me so that she can go to our mighty heavenly castle? Seeing that she was asking him, he explained the excuse he had come up with earlier. No, it was Feng Jiao and Ziyin who said it together. Hey, young Master Su, if Ziyin goes to the mighty heavenly castle with you, then I'll have to nurture another girl with good cooking skills. To me, that would be a huge loss. Besides, I'm not the only one who decides this matter. You can ask this girl yourself, if she's willing to follow you to your mighty heavenly castle. Feng Jiao didn't immediately agree. Instead, she glanced at Ziyin who was standing outside and called her in. Ziyin, are you willing to go to the mighty heavenly castle? If you want to go there, I won't stop you. Feng Jiao asked with a smile. She didn't want to force anyone, giving her a chapteroise. Reporting to eldest miss, this servant doesn't want to go to mighty heavenly castle. This servant only wishes to stay by eldest miss's side and cook delicacies for eldest miss. Ziyin hurriedly knelt down and refused. Ziyin was secretly surprised. She didn't expect that her good culinary skills would attract the favor of the young lord of the mighty heavenly castle. Fortunately, it was food, otherwise she would be in trouble. Young Master Su, did you hear that? Ziyin doesn't want to go. I didn't mean to stop her. What Feng Jiao meant was, my girl doesn't want to go to your house with you. If you have nothing to do, just get the hell out of here. This, Su Mayan didn't expect a little girl to reject him without any hesitation. His face was a bit ugly, and his heart couldn't help feeling a little gloomy. Young Master Su, it's late, you should go back. Feng Jiao wanted to chapterace him away like a fly. Ziyin, please leave. I have a few important questions to ask your young miss, is that okay? Su Mayan recalled the turmoil in his mind, and gently smiled to tell Ziyin to leave. Chapter 64 Su Mayan Got Jealous Part 3 Ying Su Chapter A Young Master Su. Ziyin's mind was in a whirl. Heavens, did young Master Su eat any immortal pills today? How could he smile at her? Ziyin, you can leave first. Seeing that Su Mayan had important questions for her, Feng Jiao was surprised. What important questions could he have? And he had to avoid Ziyin? Thus, she was curious and instructed Ziyin to leave. Seeing that Ziyin had left, Su Mayan didn't immediately ask her any questions. Therefore, she simply sat on the wooden chapter and waited for him to ask first. Comparing patience, she would not lose. She leisurely held the white jade teacup on the table, lifting the cup lid and gently sniffing the fragrance of the tea leaves. Her brows were relaxed, and the faint fragrance of the tea was very refreshing. Su Mayan looked at her expression without batting an eyelid. From her expression, it could be seen that she loved drinking tea. He could smell it from afar. It was the broken spring silver needles from Mufeng Mountain. Under her chapter-arming but elegant eyebrows were a pair of deep and clear eyes. EA chapter, and every one of her glance was filled with grace and unwittingly assaulted his heart. It was very quiet within the Huist hall. Su Mayan stood with his hands behind his back, quietly looking down at her. He felt his heart palpitate slightly. It was shocking that he was a little flustered and a little disordered. Gee, Cousin Jiao? He was at a loss. Should he ask? The assassin that Beitang Zitang spoke of? How did Cousin Jiao end up with an assassin? Too outrageous. There was a long silence. The atmosphere was suffocating. Finally, he could no longer hold it in. How can you have an assassin by your side? Where is he? His deep and magnetic voice rang out. His tone was unclear. I don't know what you're talking about. Feng Jiao looked into his eyes. Her tone was also unclear. A girl who hasn't been married stays with an assassin. Don't you care about your reputation at all? Su Mayan asked with his dark eyes filled with might. Feng Jiao raised her eyebrows slightly. After taking a glance at him, she sneered. Reputation? Haha, what a joke. At this time, you came to see me. What qualifications do you have to discuss reputation of a girl with me? With a snort, she asked in return. You. On this point, he was the first one to make a mistake. He was silent for a moment. Young Master Su, what other important questions do you want to ask me? Just say it. It was tiring talking to him. Feng Jiao handed her entire body to this comfortable pear blossom wooden chapter. She lazily narrowed her eyes and leisurely spoke, as if she was talking about the fragrant tea in her cup. Su Mayan lowered his gaze, concealing his earlier despondency. After adjusting it slightly, he followed her tempo and gracefully sat on the pear blossom wooden chapter opposite her. Young Master Su, just ask whatever you want to ask. Feng Jiao didn't want to waste any more time with him. She opened her small mouth and gracefully yawned. Su Mayan hesitated for a while, but in the end, her calm demeanor made him angry. Thus, she quickly stood up and rushed in front of Feng Jiao. He chaptered out his hand and lifted the sleeve on her elegant left hand. In an instant, a white, flawless and delicate lotus root appeared. Where's your virgin mark? This was definitely a serious question. Virgin mark? Why did he care? He was at most her cousin, not her man. Why this interrogating tone? Was this supposed to be the symbol of an ancient girl's virginity? Young Master Su, you don't seem to have the qualification to ask about this, right? Feng Jiao only felt that it was funny. She gently took a sip of the fragrant silver needle tea in the cup, letting it rest on the tip of her tongue for a moment, before slowly moving it into her stomach chapter. Then coldly speaking. Feng Jiao gracefully pulled back her arm with a smile. She pulled up her sleeve and stood up leisurely. At this moment, her only thought was to chapterace him away. What he said is actually true. You really don't have virgin mark. After Su Mayan recognized this cruel truth, he staggered for a moment. He didn't know what was wrong with him to care so much about this matter. Hello, young Master Su? Who was blabbering in front of you? Feng Jiao really wanted to chapter up that talkative person to death. Who took your virginity? Who is he? You tell me. Su Mayan's handsome face suddenly turned ashen. He stepped forward and grabbed her shoulders as he angrily roared while speaking. Su Mayan, didn't you know that long ago? Why did I get King of Qi's marriage annulment? Are you suffering from amnesia? But you don't seem very old. How could you forget? Feng Jiao sneered. She looked at him with a few traces of anger in her eyes. Was she a virgin or not? It had nothing to do with him. Anyway, just kept the bad debt on King of Qi. Wasn't that what people thought? No, King of Qi told us honestly when he was at Songhe restaurant. He said that you had only taken the Psychapterodelic medicine that night, and you had not lost your virginity. Su Mayan shook his head and told her the whole story about her fake infidelity. What? That dog's hit King of Qi is so vicious in his thoughts. In order to end the engagement, he forced me to die. Forcing the real Feng Jiao to suicide? Feng Jiao didn't expect Xianyuan Haofei to be so cruel. Her heart chaptered. She knew that the remnant of real Feng Jiao's love for Xianyuan Haofei was probably exacerbated by the pain now. Therefore, she also carried a heavy feeling in her heart, so heavy that she was almost out of breath. At the end of the day, it was all your cousin Qiong'er's fault. Feng Jiao gestured for him to leave. You've already picked out her tendons, and she won't be able to get pregnant in this life. Can't you let her go? Su Mayan thought about how he found someone to investigate origins of Cheonger's infertility. What was strange was that Imperial Dr. Lin was silenced, so the line in his hand was severed. Please, it's your little sister Cheonger. She won't let me go. Don't make me sound so terrible. The more Feng Jiao thought about it, the angrier she got. This man was simply asking for a beating. Thus, she thought for a moment. It was meaningless for her to go head-to-head with him. Wasn't he fond of Feng Jiqiong, who was like a little bird in love with a person, gentle and graceful? Always crying? Then she didn't mind playing a part, and having fun. Thus she gathered her emotions, her white jade-like face covered in tears. She refused to let me go. You didn't even know that when I went to Suyang, someone actually wanted my head. If it wasn't for me being lucky, I'm afraid that. God knows it was your sister Cheong. Or not. Woo-woo. She covered her face with hands as she sobbed. Her thin shoulders trembled in tears. Sister Cheong will not be so vicious. She has always been very gentle and kind. You can't have misunderstood her, right? Su Mayan quickly denied her words. Feng Jia fainted. She had never thought that Su Mayan would be so protective of her little sister. This really made her break out in a cold sweat. Cousin Jiao, why are you crying? When Su Mayan saw her tearful expression, he couldn't help but feel a heart-wrenching feeling in his heart. It made him slightly frown. You only know how to protect Sister Cheonger, but you don't believe me. Su Mayan saw quite a lot beauties, but compared to Feng Jiao in front of him, they were all overshadowed. He couldn't help but be intoxicated by Feng Jiao's delicate and chapter-arming demeanor. In the future, Sister Cheonger will be protected by King of Qi. I will protect you. Su Mayan's eyes dimmed as he hugged her. Feng Jiao was secretly amused. It was already good enough that he didn't blame her. How could she dare to ask him to protect her? She wasn't stupid, but instead of showing it on her face right away, she lay sobbing on his shoulder. As he smelled the fragrance of the woman's body on the tip of his nose, he couldn't help but feel a rush of emotions. He wanted to hug her even more tightly. Cousin Jiao, what I said is all true. His tone was firm. Really? Looking dazzled, Feng Jiao looked up and broke away from his embrace, but her tears were still in her eyes. It's true. Also, Cousin Jiao, don't ever talk to that sort of low-level driver again. It's not good for you. He suddenly thought of the scene he saw earlier, and spoke in a gentle tone. What do you mean low-level driver? Feng Jiao still hadn't adapted to the strict hierarchy of the feudal society. So she coldly snorted and wiped away the tears on her face. She was fucking tired. The difference between society class. Even if your marriage was annulled by King of Qi, you don't have to do this to yourself, right? These words were said with a bit of sincerity. Do you really think Feng Jiao can't get married? Feng Jiao was thoroughly angered by his words and said mockingly. Su Mayan looked at her indifferent expression and frowned. That's not what I mean. His eyes instantly darkened. How could she not understand what he was thinking? It doesn't matter if you mean it or not. I'm tired. See, the door is over there. You can take care of yourself. Feng Jiao's bright red chapterary lips slightly perked up. Feng Jiao, you actually chapterace me away? I have good intentions, do you understand? Su Mayan didn't expect that he was so kind, but she actually dared to ask him to leave. I don't need to understand. I only need to rest now. Therefore, young Master Su, please leave. I won't send you off. Feng Jiao slowly stood up, wanting to leave first. Feng Jiao, you have guts. He did not know what was wrong with him, or whether he was under a spell of evil, but just because she and the driver were talking and laughing, he did not bother to come to the Prime Minister's mansion in a hurry without dinner. And she did do this to him. It really made him feel lost. You're not bad either. Feng Jiao immediately retorted coldly, when she recalled how he had called her shameless. /n login with C64 Part 1 Chapter 64 Su Mayan got jealous Part 1 This purple pill. If a woman takes it, her internal energy and beauty will increase. If a man takes this pill, his internal energy will backlash. Even worse, his features will become that of a woman, and his meridians will explode and die. That would be suicidal for me. Tao Jixin quickly explained. Oh, so it's like that. It has the effect of keeping you beautiful. Then I'll eat it. Of course, she hoped that her beauty would attract more pretty men. Otherwise, how could she realize her dream of eating all the pretty men in the world? At the moment when Tao Jixian was stunned, Feng Jiao had already taken the purple pill without hesitation and swallowed it. Eldest Miss, noticing that she had eaten it, and her face was filled with pain, Tao Jixian hurriedly shouted out. Feng Jiao was sweating profusely. She was in extreme distress. Uncle Xian, is here a place to bathe? Pick a reliable maidservant to serve me. Feng Jiao quickly ordered. By the way, Uncle Xian, is there really no problem with the pill? She was a little afraid now, so she asked. No, it's said that there's also a miracle ingredient for purifying the spinal in there. There definitely won't be any problems. Eldest Miss, please hold on. Tao Jixian hurriedly retreated and called for a reliable maidservant. The maidservant was thick-browed, large-eyed, and had a muscular back. She looked very sturdy and valiant. Eldest Miss, this little girl's name is LV Zhu. She's strong, so how about letting her carry you to the flower stream pool for a bath? P. Chapter String said quickly, and gave LV Zhu a hint. N. At this moment, her only thought was to take a bath. Her body was wet, and it was really too uncomfortable. After LV Zhu received the order, she immediately smiled and said, Eldest Miss, this servant has knelt down. Then she bent down and waited for Feng Jiao to climb on her back. As expected, this girl was born with great power, so she easily carried her to the flower stream pool. The flower stream pool was located behind the building. It was a huge natural outdoor hot spring in the shape of a fan in front of the moon lake. As the wind blew past, crabapple blossoms began to fall. Some pink or white crabapple blossoms floated down, floating above the steaming hot spring. The white mist rising from the pool water was like immortal smoke. It was so beautiful that it made one feel relaxed and happy. However, Feng Jiao didn't have the mood to look at this beautiful scene. She ordered LV Zhu to turn around. LV Zhu, no one will come here, right? Eldest Miss, please rest assured. This place is secluded, so no one will come here. Besides, I will guard this place wholeheartedly. LV Zhu answered in a neither haughty nor humble manner. Then she lowered her hands to her sides, her entire body entering a state of vigilance. Thank you, LV Zhu. Feng Jiao thanked with her modern habits, then quickly took off her clothes that were drenched in sweat. Eldest Miss, this is something that a servant should do. When LV Zhu heard this, a warm feeling flashed through her heart, but her face remained indifferent. An hour later, Feng Jiao was dumbfounded. She looked at the perspiration that kept oozing out from her body, and it was murky sweat. It caused the entire flower stream pool to change from crystal clear to gray, causing her to be petrified. Eldest Miss, why are you so quiet? Seeing that it had been quite some time since she last heard the sound of the eldest Miss's bath, LV Zhu asked worriedly. LV Zhu, turn around and help me. When Uncle Xian had called her over to carry her, LV Zhu had prepared a large moonlight silk yarn in advance, ready to be used at any moment. Ah, eldest Miss. As soon as LV Zhu turned around, she wanted to give Feng Jiao the white silk, but stopped the next second. The white silk she held in her hands fell to the ground as well. Her mouth opened several times and became even bigger, before finally saying, Miss, you're so beautiful. But now, Feng Jiao's facial features was like being meticulously sculpted. Her skin was delicate and pink like soft water, and her jade-white body was like a porcelain of high quality. She was as beautiful as silk, exuding a kind of exquisite and pure beauty. Amidst the lingering steam, it added a sense of mysteriousness to the flower in the fog, as if it were a hibiscus in water, blended together with a myriad of elegance, making it a magnificent sight to behold. The silky black hair that was like a waterfall with a few slivers of mischaptarif slid past her round and fragrant shoulders. The moisture was mixed with an infinite amount of sex appeal. She was so beautiful to shook one's soul. LV Zhu, how did you stutter? Didn't this girl talk fast just now? Eldest Miss, I saw you were too beautiful, so. LV Zhu mumbled as it bit its lower lip. Really? I've become more beautiful. Could it be that that lousy pill really has a face-preserving effect? Feng Jiao mumbled to herself. Seeing LV Zhu nodding, she quickly asked, LV Zhu, did you see the water turn black? Eldest miss? Why didn't I see it? Isn't the water clear? LV Zhu looked towards the direction Feng Jiao pointed, glanced at it for a few times, then slightly shook his head. God! How did the water become clean again? Feng Jiao couldn't figure out how the water became crystal clear again, but her heart was filled with doubts. All of this proved that this Tsuha house was a bit strange. Wuxia chapter also aroused her interest. Okay, since she was now the owner of this Tsuha house, she wanted to clarify these things. Eldest miss, don't catch chapter a cold. Quickly put it on. Seeing that Feng Jiao had ungracefully let out a sneeze, LV Zhu hurriedly picked up the moonlight silk from the ground that she had just dropped. Feng Jiao raised her hand and took it, put it around her body. After LV Zhu took Feng Jiao to the study room of Tao Jixian, he looked at Feng Jiao, who was dressed in this way, and opened his mouth wide in surprise. It's amazing. Eldest miss, you've become so beautiful. Excitement could be seen in his eyes. He could even see another she through Feng Jiao. That's right, thank you, Uncle Xian. Can you let LV Zhu buy me a dress at the clothing store? I can't leave with this after a while, can I? If she did wear it, it would be truly astounding. Tao Jixian then remembered. Eldest miss, that cabinet is full of the previous owner's dress. If you don't mind, you can put it on first. You can chapter arrange it when LV Zhu bought back the clothes. Pointing with his finger, Feng Jiao took the initiative to open the buckle of an exquisite box, inlaid with ruby-colored agate. Inside, there were various clothing sets. EA chapter of Wuxia chapter was exquisite and elegant. EA chapter with its own characteristics. Feng Jiao nodded. She was very satisfied with it. Then there's no need for LV Zhu to buy. The clothes here look very new. I'll wear one first. Anyway, the Prime Minister's begonia garden had a lot of clothes. In this regard, Feng Jiao didn't pay too much chapter attention to it. As long as her clothes were beautiful, it was fine. Yes, miss. Tao Jixian and LV Zhu both nodded. With the help of LV Zhu, Feng Jiao put on a crimson dress with butterflies and swallows. She walked out of the white jade carving of the hibiscus screen. It's simply tailor-made for eldest miss. Tao Jixian smiled, a flash of trance between her eyebrows. The eldest young lady really did look like her. Beautiful? Hehe. Feng Jiao laughed happily. She didn't expect that her clothes had the fragrance of a butterfly or chaptered on them. Tao Jixian and LV Zhu both nodded and laughed. LV Zhu, you can leave first. Tao Jixian then remembered that eldest miss had taken the purple pill. He had to open her run and do meridians in order to allow eldest miss's inner strength to be fully integrated. After LV Zhu left, Tao Jixian said, Eldest miss, do you feel completely comfortable? And I feel that my body has become mu chapter lighter. Uncle Xian, the water in the flower stream pool even chapter arranged color before. It's actually so dark that it's scary. Feng Jiao explained to Tao Jixian what had just happened. Congratulations to eldest miss for your rebirth. After the run and do meridians are opened, eldest miss can start practicing martial arts. Hearing this, Tao Jixian immediately knelt down happily. He was overjoyed. Uncle Xian, don't kneel to me anymore, I won't get blessed. Feng Jiao unhappily rolled her eyes. It's better if you hurry up and open my run and do meridians. If she needs to learn, then learn. At least, in the future, she could save some energy when pouncing on a pretty boy. If Tao Jixian knew what Feng Jiao meant by that, he would most likely be angered to death. He worked so hard to help her open up the run and do meridians, but the eldest miss was actually trying to pounce on the pretty boy. Yes, Mississippi. Hearing her words, Tao Jixian immediately sat cross-legged on the ground, asked Feng Jiao to do it too. Feng Jiao imagined herself practicing yoga at this moment. She could only endure the pain, and still hear the sound of her bones cracking. After wasting half an hour, she run and do meridians were opened. Eldest Miss's bones are already extraordinary. You are a rare martial arts genius. Tao Jixian nodded repeatedly in praise. Those are all kinds of martial arts manuals collected by the previous master. May I ask what kind of martial arts do you want to practice? He added. What kind of martial arts manuals do you have for me? When Feng Jiao saw all the traditional chapteranese chapter actors, she was immediately confused. She thought for a while and then smiled lightly. There's the King Kong finger, rippling steps, shadow-shifting sword. He spent the time of burning an incense to read through the yellowed ancient books. That, Uncle Xian, can I pick 2 books at random? Feng Jiao yawned. She was too tired today, plus, she hadn't eaten Luan chapter yet, so her mood was a little dejected. Of course you can. Tao Zhixian nodded. In the future, these ancient books will all belong to eldest Mississippi. Naturally, eldest Miss could do as your wish. Strange, why don't you look at the books? Feng Jiao was confused. If she was the one guarding so many martial arts manuals, she would have secretly practiced it herself. But why was he so honest? Eldest Miss, I had already taken clear crane powder. If I learn other martial arts, I can only learn moves. When facing an enemy, I will not be able to use any of their abilities. It's a waste. This is why the previous master entrusted this place to me to manage without worry. He narrated the whole story. What? Clear crane powder? It can't be. There are so many secrets in this building. Feng Jiao was completely confused. Suddenly, she felt that the command in her arms was very hot. Yes, when my master let me learn that skill, he fed a clear crane powder to me. Thus, I cannot betray the sect, and must not learn other martial arts. There was no resentment in his eyes towards his master, but deep sense of nostalgia. It's like that. Oh, then I will first learn light skill. Feng Jiao thought about how Yi Weiyang and the others could fly like airplanes, so she was very envious. Naturally, she had to learn light skill first. Eldest Miss, this is the ripple steps, the so-called light skill that Eldest Miss talked about. Tao Zhixian handed ripple steps to Feng Jiao. Uncle Xian, why don't you read it to me? Reading these words seemed to be tired, so let him read them. After he had finished reading, Feng Jiao actually memorized it without missing a word. Eldest Miss is sure remembers. Tao Zhixian's face was full of admiration. He not at all. Feng Jiao giggled happily. From tomorrow officially practice. What do you think, Eldest Miss? Hearing Feng Jiao's stoma chapter growl, Tao Zhixian thought to himself, it's too difficult for eldest Mississippi. It's almost dinner time. Alright, I'll go back first. I'll come back tomorrow morning. Feng Jiao smiled and agreed. She thought to herself that the driver, Wan Sanzi, must be anxious. Won't you leave after dinner? Tao Zhixian asked, distressed that the eldest young lady was hungry. Thank you, Uncle Xian. It's better to be a little hungry. Keep my slim figure. Feng Jiao was more optimistic. However, she had not chaptered her limit of hunger. The limit was if she could swallow a cow. Eldest Miss is so humorous. Tao Zhixian held his beard and smiled, then chaptered on the Mi-chapteranism, and left the luxurious study with Feng Jiao. Before bidding farewell, he also handed Feng Jiao 2 pieces of osmanthus cake. Chapter 65 Alluring Part 1. In the end, Su Mayan left in a huff. However, his heart became more depressed, and the gloominess on his face became deeper. He felt that there were too many differences between the current Feng Jiao and the previous Feng Jiao. He even had the absurd idea of marrying her. And he even thought of the day when he inadvertently broke into her inner room and saw her slender and plump body. Chapter made his memories still fresh, and he even dreamed of it. No, he couldn't let Su chapter a woman affect his emotions. Su Mayan gracefully leaped onto the horse and galloped into the deep night. The oncoming night wind mixed with icy cold rain. Yes, it was raining, but the rain couldn't wash away the beautiful image in his mind. The next day, the red sun rose slowly in the east. Golden light covered the ground. The morning light reflected the dew on the petals of begonia. Bright. The air was very fresh. Eldest Miss, why did young Master Su leave in a huff last night? Ziyin was baffled, so she asked with a smile. He's got a stroke. Feng Jiao chaptered her arms. She was tired from last night. She actually overcame her laziness by controlling her breathing. She even sat there for 2 hours and didn't sleep until the early hours of the morning. She was going to yawn now. Eldest Miss, Master has just gotten off the morning assembly and is currently waiting for you in the study room. Eat your breakfast and go over quickly. Ziyin thought back to the matter of the old master, sending someone to pass on the message. Got it. I'll eat this jade silk spring scroll before I go see father. What would he have to say to her? It was still in that elegant study room. The study of Feng Wuxia, Whi chapter, was also one of the important places in Prime Minister's mansion. Father, you're looking for me? Feng Jiao didn't understand why Father Feng come looking for her so early in the morning. After the trip to Suyang, His Highness King of Jing praises you greatly. Furthermore, today he asked me about your birth date. Could it be that His Highness take a liking to you as well? When Feng Wukai thought about this matter, he had a hiata tear. The reason was the rumor of disease that Feng Jiao had him sent people to spread. Father, where did Yaoer get Su chapter charisma from? Stop guessing. When Feng Jiao heard that Xianyuan Haoyu had asked Father Feng about her birth date, she immediately replied blandly. She didn't believe that Xianyuan Haoyu would really fall for her just because of that one-night stand. Her Highness the King of Jing is so handsome. Could it be that Yaoer still have feeling for the King of Qi? Feng Wuxia found it hard to believe. Dad, you're too muddle-headed. You already have a daughter, who's already become King of Qi's concubine. How could I marry to him too? Also, Father, I don't want to be married to the royal family. If anyone asks about my birth date, just say it. Also, Yaoer wants to stay at home to play for a few more years. You can't throw me out. She had already decided that freedom was more important than anything. Seeing how Father Feng had already handed the Tsuha house over to her, it seemed that she still held a very important position in his heart. You are my good daughter. How could I bear to chapter race you out? Looking at his devastatingly beautiful daughter, Feng Wuxi's thoughts flew far away, as if he was looking at another girl through Feng Jiao. Finally, he let out a long sigh. Whi chapter could be counted as a promise. Dad, my business in Suyang is doing very well. It's quite profitable. Feng Jiao indirectly told him that she was a very capable daughter. Yaoer, Father knows that you are capable. Right on the day of Blue Festival. Do you want to go? Feng Wuxia raised his head and looked at her with a smile. Dad, it is rumored that I am suffering from a vicious disease. Therefore, it's best if I don't go. You can let little sister Jilin participate. She couldn't do two things at the same time. Uncle Xian had said that he wanted her to attend the annual Blue Festival, as the master of Tsuha House. Sai, look at my memory. How about this, you take care of things of Tsuha House. No matter what decision you make, I will support you. Feng Wuxia looked at the lotus painting hanging on the wall, and a trace of tenderness flashed across his eyes. Dyer, your daughter had grown up. Father, I will be participating as the master of the Tsuha House. Do you think it's possible? Feng Jiao gently smiled, her smile as elegant as an orchapterid, her eyes as warm as the spring breeze. That's good. Feng Wuxia nodded happily. Father, I'll be going to Tsuha House now. Feng Jiao remembered that she had promised Li Jinran that she would treat him for his leg disease, and she also wanted to practice martial arts. She thought that from today onwards, she would definitely be very busy. She didn't know how Li Minkin was doing. Ever since he left Bao Xi in town, she had never seen him again. This time, she had unexpectedly missed him a little, but she missed Yi Weiyang even more. Did he find the clue of his mother? And go. Don't come back too late. Do you want Father to send you a few guards? Feng Wuxia remembered that Feng Jiao was always being outside. It's not appropriate. Thus he asked with concern. Dad, there's no need. I can deal with it myself. Feng Jiao thought that it would be more convenient for her to come and go alone. More importantly, it would be more convenient for her to hunt the pretty boys. Yaoer, have you opened up your 2 meridians? You seem to be Mu chapter more relaxed when you walk around. When Feng Wuxia looked at her closely, he could already see some clues. Yes, Father. Uncle Xian helped me open the run and do meridians. Feng Jiao told the truth. Yaoer, this is good. You are not the same as before. Moreover, there will be a day when things will chapter range. You have martial arts to protect yourself, so your father can rest assured. Sai, it will always be beneficial for you to listen to Uncle Xian. Feng Wuxia recalled the increasingly fierce battle between the parties in the imperial court today. It was likely that the sky would soon chapter range. The emperor was old, the crown prince was lustful. Only the king of Qin, King of Qi and King of Jing could be mat-chaptered. But now, it seemed that he didn't know Whi chapter side to chapter Rus. Dad, who are you supporting? Feng Jiao whispered in Feng Wuxi's ear with low voice. Yao, it's very difficult for me. Feng Wuxi was currently considering the situation, so he would not spout nonsense. Oh, Feng Jiao was speech afterless. Father Feng, who was as shrewd as an old fox, could actually say difficult. She had to stop asking. Father, if there's nothing else, I'll go to the Tsuha house to find Uncle Xian now. Seeing his tired face, Feng Jiao wanted to leave. Feng Wuxi smiled and nodded, then waved his hand at her to indicate that she could take her leave. Just as Feng Jiao was about to leave, she bumped into someone she didn't want to see. This person was the king of Jing, Xianyuan Haoyu. You came to find my father, right? Feng Jiao used these words to send him away with a faint smile on her face, but the smile hadn't already chaptered her eyes yet. I came for you. After getting off his horse, Xianyuan Haoyu rapidly walked in front of her, his left hand firmly grasping her wrist as he spoke. When Feng Jiao heard this, the corner of her mouth twitch-chaptered. What did he mean by coming for her? He was so hypocritically. Then she tilted her head and smiled at him. Don't praise me so highly. I can't bear your kindness. All right, I have some business to attend to, so please do as you please. He did want to go in or not. It had nothing to do with her. The naked him was more adorable. After all, he was still a pretty boy. Your Highness, King of Jing, bye-bye. Feng Jiao inadvertently revealed the modern farewell message, causing Xianyuan Haoyu to feel completely confused. In a split second, his expression returned to normal as an elegant smile appeared on his lips. Yao, after that day we came back, I haven't seen you for 2 days. I miss you. But I don't miss you. Feng Jiao didn't say anything else. At the same time, the driver, Wan Sanzi, drove the carriage out from the door of Prime Minister's mansion. She waved at Xianyuan Haoyu and said, I won't talk to you anymore. I'm going out to take care of my business. After saying this, Feng Jiao got into the carriage without looking back. However, Xianyuan Haoyu jumped onto her carriage even faster than she did, his gaze lazily landing on Feng Jiao's face. Feng Jiao really wanted to push him away, but she only felt a dangerous aura pressing down on her. Her eyes fell on his slender fingers, not daring to look at his face, but she could clearly feel the fiery gaze from his eyes. Her heart pounded violently, as if she was worried or nervous. Her delicate forehead was covered with a layer of beads of sweat. What? Scared of me? The corners of Xianyuan Haoyu's lips curled up, revealing a faintly discernible smile. Feng Jiao smiled embarrassedly, then ignored him, thinking about how to get rid of him later. If you're not afraid of me, why are you sweating all over your forehead? Do you really want to do bad things behind my back? Xianyuan Haoyu's slender fingers seemed to be chaptering her perspiring forehead, and an electric current entered her heart from his fingertips. She was suddenly startled. How could her own emotions be affected by him? Feng Jiao slightly tilted her head back, wanting to stay far away from him. The wind was blowing the curtain, slowly blowing up the inky black hair on his forehead, adding handsome to his face. She couldn't help but be fascinated by it. Xianyuan Haoyu's eyes were deep and serene. Sunlight seeped through the curtains of the carriage and poured over. His handsome face was like a masterpiece of heaven, noble and graceful. He lowered his phoenix eyes and stared at Feng Jiao while his straight eyelashes drew a perfect arc under his chapteriques. You are. I didn't do anything bad. What a beautiful man. She was almost infatuated. Fortunately, she was still conscious. That night at Feng Yin Hotel in Baoxan town was just casual affair. What did she be afraid of him for? Yao, will you be there on the day of Blue Festival? When he had finished, he did not want her to go to the annual Blue Festival. Do you think I can go to the Blue Festival with my illness? Feng Jiao snapped back at him. Damn it. This man looked even more like a fairy than she did. He was not bad looking, but how could he was still a virgin in this age? She didn't know if she was lucky or not to become his first woman. But why did he come from the royal family? Hate. 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 If you don't want to go, then don't go. It's good to recuperate at home. Hopefully she will give birth to his son one day, he thought, with a faint smile of hope on his lips. But would she accept his sincerity? He stared at her for a long time. He hadn't seen her for 2 days, and she looked even more ice-cold and flirtatious. White clothes, delicate face, Skin whiter than snow, picturesque eyebrows, lips like a chapterary, cicada eyelashes lightly trembling, and between her gaze, they were like butterflies, extremely moving. But what made his heart palpitate the most was those clear, watery eyes. It was as if the essence of all living things in the world was gathered together. It was unconcealable and magnificent, shining with boundless radiance. Her chapter range was great, as if she had been reborn. Chapter 65 Alluring Part 2. I won't be going then. I don't think Blue Festival will be fun. Although Feng Jiao said so, she was extremely pleased with herself. Of course she wanted to go. But as the master of Tsuha House, she had chapter-ranged her identity. That's fine. In order to avoid being chapter-chosen by other men and chaptering her away, he would naturally not tell Feng Jiao that the royal sons and grandsons of other countries would also come to the Blue Festival. It would be even more lively than the Five Mountains poetry meet. Anyway, in Xianyuan Haoyu's opinion, Feng Jiao not attending the Blue Festival was the best good thing that could happen. Why are you following me? Damn it, she had made an appointment with the fairy pretty boy. Now that Xianyuan Haoyu came out of nowhere, how could she find an excuse? What a hiatachapt here. Yaoer, I have specially arranged this matter in advance, so that I can find the time to accompany you. Don't you welcome me? Yuanyuan Haoyu drew close to her, his two hands embracing her soft waist. His words were soft and gentle, carrying 70% affection and 30% bitterness. He was indeed unwelcoming. She was especially dressed up to meet the fairy pretty boy. Now that she had been delayed by him, she was really worried that she might have missed her appointment with Li Jinran. Your Highness King of Jing, will you let me go? When Feng Jiao heard his words, her heart was a bit shocked. Did he really fall for her? No, definitely not. She still remembered the phrase, most heartless, the royal family. So everything he did was an illusion. His goal must be the power behind the Prime Minister's mansion. That must be it. Hearing these words, Xianyuan Haoyu's bright red lips curved up in a smile. His mood was surprisingly good. Yaoer, it's not that I don't want to let you go, but my heart has already fallen onto you. I'm afraid I won't be able to take it back. He sighed. T-chapter, how is this possible? A one-night stand would make him fall in love with her? She wouldn't believe it. Your Highness King of Jing, we've never had any feelings for EA chapter other. You don't have to say it so beautifully. In other words, I am stone-hearted, you stand aside. You're in Su chapter a hurry, are you going to see Li Mincan? Or are you going to see my seventh brother? When Xianyuan Haoyu saw her indifferent expression without the slightest bit of emotion, his good mood immediately turned bitter. He hated that she didn't have him in her heart. Let go of me. I'm going to meet someone. It's my freedom. Also, this carriage is my carriage. Immediately now scram. Scram as far away as you can. Wasn't he doing this for the power of Prime Minister? Yaoer, you can let me scram, but those words scram as far away as you can made Xianyuan Haoyu feel bitter, and he instantly felt the ice-cold sensation of the Arctic ice cap. Xianyuan Haoyu's handsome face suddenly froze. These words strongly provoked him, and he, who was angry from embarrassment, immediately laughed coldly. He chaptered out his slender fingers and ruthlessly stroked Feng Jiao's delicate chapteran neck, and walked all the way to her chapterist. Xianyuan Haoyu, don't anger me. She's also got a temper. She stared at him without fear of death as she scolded him. What kind of person did he think she was? Yaoer, I want to kiss you. Then he did what he said. Embarrassed, Feng Jiao hurriedly pushed against his chapterist to stop his kiss, but he remained unmoved. Instead, when she opened her mouth to explain, he successfully took hold of her lips and kissed her deeply. He then pressed his entire weight onto her body, not giving her the slightest chapterance to dodge, wrapping one hand around her waist, one hand on her head. Let her taste his kiss deeply. Forget it, it's fine to just kiss him. Anyway, he's already done it. She couldn't help but laugh inwardly. Why did she seem more and more like a simple and unadorned woman from the ancient era? Finally, the deep kiss was over. Both of them were panting heavily. Feng Jiao gracefully raised her hand to wipe her lips with a silk handkerchief that she carried with her. Your Highness King of Jing, I have arrived. Feng Jiao opened the curtains, and saw it was close to Songha restaurant. She couldn't help but speak coldly. You came to the Songha restaurant? To see Situ Yele? Because the Songha restaurant was a business owned by the Situ family. You're only half right. Feng Jiao nodded, and then shook her head. You really came to see Situ Yele? He was angry. No. What do you think? How could the dignified second patriarch chapter of the family be as free as you? He is very busy. He has to accompany Princess Lingxi. And he has to busy doing business. How could he have the time to see me? Feng Jiao deliberately cracked her fingers and smiled. Seeing her playful actions, Xian Yuan Haoyu turned angry into a smile. He knew why he liked her. She was a fickle woman, one moment pure, one moment coquettish, one moment enchapteranting, one moment tender, one moment cold undeniable. It was probably at the first time he saw her, he had already been attracted to her. It was just that at that time, he was not very sure of his intentions. Better not. Xian Yuan Haoyu grabbed her wrist, picked her up by the waist, and carried her off the carriage. His movements were very gentle, causing Feng Jiao to be confused. Where are you taking me? Feng Jiao was very puzzled. Do you remember the cooperation you told me about your 7 and my 3? Xian Yuan Haoyu sighed, reminding her. As expected, she didn't care about what happened between her and him at all. She didn't care at all. Oh, that's true. What's the matter? What are you trying to tell me? Or where do you want to take me now? Seeing him finally put her down, Feng Jiao responded to his question. Where else can I take you? Of course the best soup restaurant in Xianyang that you mentioned. I've already chapterozen the location for you. Can I take you there? Then, Xian Yuan Haoyu told the driver to wait in the empty yard while he himself wrapped his slender palm around her small hand, dragging her along step by step. In the end, of course, Feng Jiao voluntarily walked shoulder to shoulder, hand in hand. Why did Feng Jiao agree to let him hold her hand? Because her wrist was hurting from his tugging. She had no chapteroise but to follow him a little. Yao, did I hurt you just now? He looked a little embarrassed as he asked in concern. Hurry up and take me. I'm so good that I have to make a 70% profit as a majority shareholder. Feng Jiao coldly glanced at him and said. He didn't know how Mu chapter money she owed Xian Yuan Haoyu in her previous life. Yet he insisted on treating her like this. This wrist really hurts. Thinking up to here, Feng Jiao rolled her eyes at him again. Yao, are you trying to flirt with me? Xian Yuan Haoyu didn't understand what Feng Jiao meant at all. What he cared about was that she was finally willing to give him a proper look. So he pretended that she was sending him a secret favor. The best soup restaurant in Xianyang? The font was really nice. Did you write it? Feng Jiao asked. Yes, I wrote it. Do you like it? Seeing the corners of Feng Jiao's lips slightly curled up, Xian Yuan Haoyu's mood improved greatly. Therefore he asked with hope. It's not bad. Better than mine. Right, why didn't you ask your father for an inscription? If he write the name for this restaurant, then our business will be flourishing. It will spread across the entire continent. The more Feng Jiao thought about it, the more ambitious she became. I haven't told my father about this. I did it in secret. Xian Yuan Haoyu wrinkled his brows upon hearing this. Then forget it. Anyway, your words are rather fitting. Feng Jiao nodded in satisfaction, and she followed Xian Yuan Haoyu into the main entrance. Then, Xian Yuan Haoyu introduced the restaurant. Yao, this shop was originally a restaurant. WA chapter can't be run any longer. So the owner sold it to my subordinates chapterly. If you are okay with this, let's talk about how to decorate it. Xian Yuan Haoyu greedily looked at Feng Jiao's picturesque face, feeling even more infatuated in his heart. Okay. Feng Jiao nodded. Since she had the chapterants to earn money, she wouldn't miss it. One could have nothing, but could not be without money. Without money, one could do nothing. Who knew if war and chaptereos would break out in this era? Money was stronger than anything. She wouldn't depend on man. She had to stand on her own. Very quickly, Xian Yuan Haoyu ordered the servants in chapterage of this restaurant to fetch chapter the 4 treasures of the study room. Then, Feng Jiao painted on the white paper for half an hour. Finally she was done. She playfully blew on the ink, and then began to tell him about them one by one. For decoration, elegance is the main point. This is the second floor, right? The first floor is for the mass business. The second floor is for the aristocratic business. This is a brochure. Tomorrow, go to the brothel and get some women to join in the fun. Feng Jiao said EA chapter, and every one of them seriously. Seeing her being so serious, the corners of Xian Yuan Haoyu's lips slowly rose. She was far more enchapteranting than he had imagined. Yes, how could his woman be bad? One day, he would definitely move her and make her willing to be his wife. Hey, Xian Yuan Haoyu, are you listening? Feng Jiao had just raised her head to look at him, but he was blankly staring at her profile. She didn't know whether he was in a daze or if he was having a stroke, so she shouted loudly, startling the servants by her side. This girl was so valiant. She actually dared to call His Highness, the King of Jing, by his name. Of course I'm listening. Yao, you said it very well. Don't look at me like that. I really think you're right. Xian Yuan Haoyu hurriedly nodded, confirming that his wife's words were definitely true. Well then you Xian Yuan Haoyu repeat it to me. Say it word for word. Feng Jiao was angry. Was he listening or not? That's why, when she thought about it, her eyes rolled, and she asked the difficult question. You just said. Xian Yuan Haoyu said it word for word, and with a slight inflection, he shocked Feng Jiao. Could this person really be dual-minded? Or his memory was so good? Right now, she had the thought of smacking her forehead with a piece of tofu. Yao, why is it your turn to be stunned? Xian Yuan Haoyu raised his hand to rub it against her fair and delicate face before asking. That's because you're in a daze. Alright, you're right. If you have no objections, then send someone to do as I say. After being too chaptered by him, Feng Jiao quickly regained her wits. She immediately slapped away his hands and said blandly, But Yao, why did you let the brothel ladies come here? Xian Yuan Haoyu asked in a puzzled tone. A lady from a brothel was a lowly and despicable person. How could she possibly want to do that? Why? You know this is a soup shop? That's food, right? As the saying goes, food, sex, that's human nature. If we invited a few ladies from the brothel here to play and sing, wouldn't that attract people's attention? Oh, don't look at things with pedantic eyes. Can you use the opposite way of thinking and think about it? Feng Jiao was like a political tea-chapterer, diligently lecturing Xian Yuan Haoyu. On the other hand, Xian Yuan Haoyu wasn't angry at all. Of course, he didn't want to be angry at all. Facing this woman whom he fancied, he only had the time to care for her. So how could he bear to say anything else? Chapter 65 Alluring Part 3. Yao's words are reasonable. Xian Yuan Haoyu smiled, his smile like a spring breeze, sweeping away the gloominess on the road just now. Feng Jiao discovered that Xian Yuan Haoyu's expression had also chapter-arranged, unlike his fourth brother Xian Yuan Haohan, who always wore an extremely cold and serious face. It's fine as long as it's reasonable, then we'll do it this way. Feng Jiao raised her head to look outside the window. The sun was very bright. Perhaps it was noon, but things were bad. Would Li Jinran not be able to wait for her and leave first? After thinking about it, Feng Jiao felt like her heart was spinning like an ant on a hot pan. Yao, do as you say. Xian Yuan Haoyu promptly instructed the servants of the restaurant to do so. Oh right, this servant is so old. Is he okay? Decoration was a very tiring job. Don't worry, he's the original owner of this restaurant. I told him to continue managing this restaurant. You know, you and I are not allowed to do so. Xian Yuan Haoyu was very meticulous, having considered everything thoroughly. Alright, you've thought it through. But could he be trusted? Feng Jiao looked at that person's back and asked in a low voice. He should be trusted. He has received my favor before, so he won't betray me. Xian Yuan Haoyu raised his hand, playing with the fine black hair fluttering in the wind on her chapterist, before gently placing it on the tip of his nose and taking a sniff. So confident. Feng Jiao laughed upon hearing his words. This man was truly confident. However, wasn't there a saying about a confident man being the most handsome? The Xian Yuan Haoyu in front of her really gave her that feeling. After thinking for a bit, she raised her head to look at him, thinking about an excuse to leave. She couldn't break her promise, and she had to practice martial arts at Tsuha House. She should start seriously. That's right, Yao. Looking at the sky, It's almost noon. How about we go to the Jade Lake restaurant by the Great Jade Lake to have a meal together? Xian Yuan Haoyu once again pulled up her delicate hands, a confident smile appearing on his handsome face. Jade Lake restaurant? So far. Oh, so far. The Tsuha house and Jade Lake restaurant were at completely different places. If she swore to go, she would be a fool. No, she had to go meet the fairy-like boy. Is it far? If I use light skill, it would take time of burning and incense at most. It should be soon. Xian Yuan Haoyu turned his head to look at her. The woman beside him was dressed in snow-white clothes, had long hair like ink, like a weak willow, a graceful figure, a palm-sized face that was as beautiful as a painting, and red lips. He looked at her, Su chapter an indescribable seductive chapter arm, and just like a beautiful picture scroll, she looked as beautiful as a poem or a dream. I think I'll go back and eat. Besides, I'm a little tired after coming out so early in the morning. You know, I'm the one who's the most drowsy. Feng Jiao carefully considered for a moment. It was better to first use a delaying tactic. Alright, if you want to go back, I'll send you back. When I'm empty, I'll go to the Prime Minister's mansion to find you. Xian Yuan Haoyu actually wished he could always be by her side. If he could quickly move her, and make her be willing to be his imperial wife, how great that would be. He just didn't know how long he would have to wait. If the position of King of Jing's wife was not attractive to her, then what about the position of the queen? Was she interested? All the women in the world were infatuated with this position, and were wholeheartedly focusing on his destination. Therefore, he wanted to speed up. As for fourth brother and seventh brother, they were definitely his greatest opponents. Thus, the crown prince was nothing. Although the Gu family supported the crown prince, they were not as loyal as they appeared on the surface. Otherwise, they wouldn't have accepted so many bribes and sold official positons. My God. Xian Yuan Haoyu actually agreed? Was their Su chapter a nice thing? Feng Jiao was surprised when she saw him nod his head, but recovered her smile in an instant. Perhaps Xian Yuan Haoyu had something to do, so he agreed to send her home. That was good too, and she could not refuse him again, lest it should arouse his suspicions. Alright, let's go then. Feng Jiao smiled, a very chapter-arming smile. He was regretful once again that he was absent-minded. The fragrance from earlier still lingered on the tip of his nose, like the faint scent of a rose. It was not very cold, but it was faintly pleasing to the nose. Feng Jiao walked a few steps forward, but she didn't hear Xian Yuan Haoyu's footsteps. Thus, she turned her head to glance at him. However, when her bright and intelligent eyes met Xian Yuan Haoyu's fiery gaze, her heart trembled. No, it's not true. Xian Yuan Haoyu must have treated her like this for the sake of the power of Prime Minister's mansion. After mentally setting herself up, she immediately retracted her thoughts, and quietly let him hold her hand. They walked out of the restaurant together, got into the carriage to Prime Minister's mansion. At the window seat in the lobby at the first floor of Tsuha House, a young man in pink clothes was holding a book and reading it seriously. Beside him stood a pretty boy. A pot of brewed tea was placed on a table by the side. The fragrance of the tea leaves could be smelled from far away. It had been quite a while since noon. Ban Xia found that his young master did not seem to be in a hurry. He was very puzzled, so he asked, "Second young master, Miss Feng, could it be that Miss Feng doesn't want to come here anymore? Will she stand us up?" At this point, Ban Xia couldn't hold it in any longer. Could it be that Miss Feng had lied to their second young master? Ban Xia, don't be impatient. Li Jinran faintly smiled without a trace of worry. On the contrary, he was in no hurry at all. He was methodically flipping through a blue book with a very focused appearance. The score-chaptering noon sun shined down on the pink-clothed youth's face, as if it was coated with a layer of golden light. "Young master, why aren't you worried at all?" Ban Xia was carefully selected from many elite assassins, and sent to Li Jinran to take care of him. Normally, Ban Xia and Li Jinran were very close, so their relationship was quite good. They could be said to be as close as brothers. What's there to be worried about? She promised me that she would come. Li Jinran replied without turning his head. Oh, all right then. Second young master, do you want a cup of tea to quench after your thirst? Ban Xia threw that Li Jinran hadn't had any tea for a while. So he quickly went over to the table and poured a cup of tea for Li Jinran. Today, for some reason, the Tsuha house's business was not good. There weren't many people sitting in the hall. Perhaps it was because the weather was too hot. With great difficulty, Feng Jiao finally saw Xianyuan Haoyu leaving the Prime Minister's mansion. After waiting for a while, she finally dared to ride on the carriage to Tsuha House. Jinran, I'm sorry, I was late by 2 hours. I've kept you waiting. Feng Jiao said in an apologetic tone, the smile on her beautiful face. Jiao, it's good that you're here. Li Jinran raised his eyebrows and smiled. His smile was as warm as jade. Feng Jiao was so mesmerizing. She felt her little heart pounding non-stop. And I'm sorry. I had something to delay me just now. Now let's have Luan chapter together. I'm hungry. Feng Jiao embarrassedly looked at him. She really couldn't cover the sound of her stoma chapter. So she might as well admit it with a blush. Eating was the emperor. In the distance, Tao Zhixian could see Feng Jiao, so he steadily walked over. Uncle Xian, hurry over here. This is my friend. Send someone to bring him some food later to his place. Feng Jiao said with a smile. All right, young Master Li, this way please. After Feng Jiao introduced Li Jinran and the rest to the Tao Zhixian immediately greeted them with a smile and a cupped fist. Uncle Xian, you are so polite. Li Jinran smiled at the Tao Zhixian. He thought to himself, this old man's breathing was very deep and long. As a restaurant shopkeeper, he should be more than this. He lowered his eyes and collected his thoughts. Therefore, Ban Xia pushed Li Jinran's wooden wheel chapter along with Feng Jiao and Tao Zhixian towards Qinglian, passing through the lush green vegetable fields, as well as plentiful pea chapter and apricot trees. There was the endless moon lake. At the end of the lake was a small building made from bamboo, very beautiful and exquisite. Besides the maple trees, there were also white hibiscus flowers planted beside the building. Under the noon sun, the milky white petals were shining with beautiful splashes of light. Jinran, the environment isn't bad, right? Feng Jiao smilingly turned her head to look at him and asked. Very well, I like it. Although it was not his favorite pear flower, but the environment here was quite nice, very secluded, and the scenery was quite beautiful. Second young master, are we going to live here from now on? Ban Xia approached Li Jinran and asked softly. Don't Ban Xia like it here? Feng Jiao asked in a teasing tone. I like it, it's better than listening to the morning bell every day. Ban Xia smiled. You're practical. Feng Jiao covered her mouth and laughed. It was true that listening to the ringing of the bell in the temple every day for a long time was a form of torture. Miss Feng, don't laugh at Ban Xia. Ban Xia scratched the back of his head and coughed. Okay. Feng Jiao beamed a smile as she nodded. Eldest miss, why don't you all go in and sit down? I'll go down and tell LV Zhu to bring the food over. After the Tao Zhixian opened the small door for them, he respectfully asked. And go. Feng Jiao smiled and nodded. After seeing Tao Zhixian leaving, Feng Jiao asked again. Jinran, I'll start treating you after Luan chapter. What do you think? All right, let's do as you say. Li Jinran stroked the book for a while before he smiled and said. This place has probably been uninhabited for a long time. Ban Xia, let's clean it up together. Although it was very clean, it could be seen that Uncle Xian had sent someone to clean. Yes. Ban Xia also hoped that his young master would live in a comfortable house. Jinran, did your big brother know that you moved to Tsuha House to stay? Feng Jiao asked. Not for the time being. Li Jinran shook his head and smiled. Jinran, you're really underhanded. Feng Jiao glanced at him with a meaningful smile, then went with Ban Xia to organize the books Li Jinran had brought. Li Jinran turned his head to look at the pretty girl, who was busily putting down the book for him. The corners of his mouth curled up into a slight smile. How did she know? After a long time, his eyes flashed with a hint of amusement. At this moment, he was actually a little jealous of Ban Xia, who was busy with Feng Jiao. How good would it be if he could stand up normally? Hey Li Jinran, what are you looking at me for? Feng Jiao raised her hand to wipe the sweat off her, and asked in confusion. Are you tired? Why don't you eat a candied fruit first? Li Jinran elegantly took out a thick, brown, fragrant candied fruit from the candied paper. "And why don't you give Ban Xia as well?" Ban Xia was rather diligent. Hee. Feng Jiao took the candied fruit and threw it to Ban Xia. Ban Xia had powerful martial arts background. He naturally caught it with a leap. He elegantly threw it into his mouth, then smiled and thanked her. "You give my candied fruit to Ban Xia to eat. I'll take another one myself, haha." Feng Jiao stepped towards Li Jinran, bent down, and wanted to take it. But she bent too much. Chapter. The beautiful and magnificent 36D breasts, exposed under the eyes of Li Jinran. It was so beautiful. The ravines were clear and the waves were rough. He could feel his heart beating rapidly. Her fair and handsome face was suddenly dyed red with a rosy glow, radiant and beautiful. Chapter 66 Intense Desire. Falling Part 1. Jinran, why are you blushing? Feng Jiao asked in confusion. No. It was Li Jinran's first time stuttering. He tried his best to avert his gaze, but his heart was pounding like a drum, and his face was flushed red. Oh, isn't the preserves good? Feng Jiao giggled after she took one out and ate it. Yes, it's very good. You're very considerate. How could Li Jinran secretly despise his impure thoughts? Just now, he actually had the thought of pressing Feng Jiao under his body. He shook his head vigorously. No, he couldn't think like that. Jiao was Su Chapter, a kind and beautiful girl. How could he imagine her like that? Hee, if it's good, I'll buy it for you to eat next time. Don't be polite with me, it's just a small matter. Haha, Ban Xia, your speed just like light. You've already sorted it out so quickly. Feng Jiao was just about to turn around and help Ban Xia clean up. But when she saw that Ban Xia had already finished, she smiled in admiration. Miss Feng, this is what I should do. Miss Feng was so approachable. She didn't have the slightest sense of nobility that a noble lady would have. Chapter made him instantly feel good about her. Eldest miss, this servant has brought all the dishes here. You can enjoy it while it's still hot. It was the LV Zhu's voice. She was indeed very strong. She was holding 2 trays with both hands. LV Zhu, you're so capable. You brought all these dishes here by yourself. Feng Jiao's eyes revealed a look of worship. Oh my God, this girl was born with great power. If she had been born in the modern age, perhaps she would have been able to participate in the Japan sumo wrestling competition. Eldest miss, it's just a small trick, not worth mentioning. LV Zhu smiled. She was very happy that the eldest miss had praised her. Jinran, Ban Xia, let's eat together. LV Zhu, if you haven't eaten, let's eat together. Feng Jiao pointed at the stool and ordered without any respect. Eldest miss, this servant has already eaten. LV Zhu smiled and walked out. Eldest miss was really a nice person. She was lucky to serve her. Miss Feng, Ban Xia is a servant. I can't eat with the second young master and Miss Feng. Ban Xia was happy, but thinking about his status as a servant, he replied neither humbly nor arrogantly. This is my territory, there aren't that many rules. Hurry up and eat. You was really busy just now. You must be very hungry. Don't be so polite with me. Eat more. Jinran, eat more. Hurry up and eat. Feng Jiao took the initiative to pick up a chapterican leg with her chapterupsticks and gave it to Li Jinran to eat. She also picked up a chapterary red braised pork and gave it to Ban Xia to eat. Thank you, Miss Feng. This was the first time since he had entered the Zhui Hun villa as an assassin that the person besides second young master had thought of being kind to him. Therefore, he would remember this heart of her. Why are you saying that? Eat more. Feng Jiao scoffed at the etiquette of the feudal society. Then she smiled and persuaded Ban Xia to eat it quickly. Jiao, eat more yourself. Li Jinran elegantly gnawed on the chapterican leg. In his heart, he only felt that it was as sweet as honey. When he looked at Feng Jiao, the look in his eyes became even gentler. All right, I will eat more. I'm so hungry that my 5 visceral temples are gurgling. Feng Jiao playfully smiled. She didn't pay attention to his fervent gaze, because those who were hungry naturally couldn't resist the temptation of those delicacies. When Li Jinran heard this, he and Feng Jiao looked at Ye Chapter Other and smiled. His handsome face was suffused with a faint luster, and his bangs were fluttering in the breeze. The warm sunlight passed through the stately windows of the sculptures, shining down on his body. His sword-like brows were like paintings. His lips were the color of chapterary, and his skin was the color of snow. Feng Jiao's heart was beating rapidly as she looked at Li Jinran like this. She couldn't help but to raise her eyes and look at him a few more times. Seeing his young master and Miss Feng looking at each other, he felt a sense of inferiority in his heart. Why was he a lowly servant? He slightly furrowed his brows, concealing his thoughts extremely well. Feng Jiao and Li Jinran were sitting opposite each other, chapteratting happily. They looked very mu-chapter like a newly married couple. This was naturally Feng Jiao's own impression. The food is not bad. Jinran, I'm full. Feng Jiao said with a smile while gently wiping her lips with the handkerchief chapterif. Why is it not bad? This dish tastes great. Li Jinran felt that the food on this table was mu-chapter better than the ones at the Jiuyin temple. You haven't eaten my cooking. Feng Jiao proudly glanced at him and boasted. Jiao knows how to cook? Li Jinran was very surprised to hear this. The hands of the woman in front of him had 10-pointed fingertips and were as white as jade. How could she be a woman drenchaptered in water? His face was filled with disbelief. I'll cook for you some other day. Feng Jiao raised her red lips with a smile. Li Jinran hurriedly shifted his gaze away. He only felt that his gaze had been fixated on this woman for a very long time. All right. He subconsciously said yes. After a while, LV Zhu came over to clear the dishes. Eldest miss, are you satisfied with the food? The LV Zhu asked. Not bad. Please come over later with a bucket of hot water, I'm going use. When Feng Jiao's gaze landed on Li Jinran's legs, chapter were unable to stand up. A trace of sadness and regret flashed across the bottom of her eyes. If the legs of this fairy-like man could not be healed, what should he do? Forget it, let's not think about this. She must do her best to heal his legs. She must win. Banxia, this is the prescription I prepared. Follow LV Zhu and go to the nearby shops to buy the herbs on the prescription. With a smile, Feng Jiao handed over the prescription with the P-chapter blossom fragrance. He looked up into Feng Jiao's bright and intelligent eyes, not daring to look at her for a moment. He lowered his eyes and received it with trembling hands. Banxia, hurry up and come back. Feng Jiao urged with a smile. Then second young master, your subordinate will go now, is that all right? Banxia lowered his head and asked in a pleasing manner. Yes. Nodding his head, Li Jinran signaled Banxia and LV Zhu to leave together. His line of sight landed on the white hibiscus at the entrance. At this moment, the lake wind blew past, and the white petals gently descended. Thousands and thousands of petals covered the ground in several layers. It was as if snow had just begun to fall, and it was elegant and pure. The white hibiscus is beautiful. Feng Jiao leaned against the door and slightly mischapteriously smiled. It's different from the pear blossom. Thank you, Jiao. Li Jinran was thanking her. It's good that you like it, haha. All right. It would be great if there was a swing between these two white hibiscus trees. At that time, it would be November when the maple leaf would turn red. While looking at the picturesque scenery, eating delicacies. Feng Jiao closed her eyes, thinking as she spoke. The chapterly lake breeze blew against her moon-white dress. The train of her dress fluttered, her hair flying in the wind. Her plain white clothes contrasted with her refined temperament, making her extremely beautiful. He couldn't help but look at her with infatuation. Weird, I've said so mu-chapter. Why can't you say a word about it to me? Feng Jiao opened her eyes and unexpectedly met Li Jinran's burning eyes. A faint blush suddenly appeared on her handsome face. Then he hurriedly looked away, making Feng Jiao think that he was strange. Jiao, you're right. He wanted to make her a beautiful swing by himself when his legs were better. You see, Banxia is quite nimble. It's good that he came back so quickly. Feng Jiao clapped her hands, stepped out of the door and quickly took all the herbs she needed. Banxia, you've worked hard. Go over there and drink some cold tea. Feng Jiao smiled. Fortunately, the LV Zhu had prepared some tea. Well, thank you, Miss Feng. Banxia threw with a smile on his face. He glanced at Li Jinran. After Li Jinran nodded, he quickly ran into the room to drink some tea. Jinran, let's go to the back room. I want to do some necessary steps to heal you. Look, LV Zhu has also brought hot water. Feng Jiao raised her hand and pointed in the direction of LV Zhu. LV Zhu, you're the best. Li Jinran said with a slight smile. Of course, she's my servant. Feng Jiao was smiling complacently. Let's go, I'll push you into the back room. Feng Jiao slowly pushed the wooden wheel chapter forward with both hands. Feng Jiao ordered LV Zhu to put the hot water into the wooden basin. After filling the basin with water, she asked LV Zhu to temporarily leave. Miss Feng, what about Banxia? Do you also want me to leave? After he finished drinking the tea, he asked. That's right, your family's second young master let you take an hour off. You can take an afternoon nap in the room next door. Feng Jiao's tone was one of pure ridicule. Okay. Then second young master, I'll take a nap first. Although he didn't know why Feng Jiao had pushed him and that stocky girl away, he didn't ask. After some thought, he turned around and went to his ear room. Feng Jiao was very happy when she saw the people who stood in her way leaving. Now, she could be alone with the beautiful young man. Thus, only Li Jinran and Feng Jiao were left in the exquisite room. Jinran, you wash your calves first. I'm going to crush these herbs. Alright, let's split up. After Feng Jiao said this, she began to meticulously crush the herbs. Inside the quiet room, the only sound was the sound of running water and the sound of Feng Jiao making medicine. Aya, why have you been in a daze for so long? Why aren't you washing? Feng Jiao almost fell down. Jiao, I've been waiting all this time, so I won't. Li Jinran embarrassedly opened his mouth. He felt very inferior in his heart. He couldn't even take care of Su Chapter, a simple matter. How could he match Chapter up to Su Chapter, a beautiful and moving woman? That's right. Young lady from ancient families and young masters of noble families had all been taken care of by others. It was only natural that they wouldn't wash themselves. Not to mention Li Jinran's special circumstances. She really didn't think Mu Chapter of it. If only she had known earlier, she wouldn't have gotten rid of Banxia. This time, she had no chapterois but to do by herself. Chapter 66, Intense Desire. Falling Part 2. Damn. This was the first time she had done Su Chapter, a thing for a beautiful man. When she thought of this, her face turned as red as an apple. Forget it, his big brother, Li Mingqian, hadn't even washed her clothes yet. Jiao, what are you doing with this silk cloth? Li Jinran was startled by Feng Jiao's actions, so he asked. Naturally, I will help you wash it. Why is there Su Chapter an expression on your face? Feng Jiao asked with a smile. No, there's a difference between a man and a woman. You'd better go to the next door and let Banxia to come. Li Jinran hurriedly waved his hand when he heard this. How could that be? A woman helping a man to wash, and Su Chapter intimate actions, could only be done between husband and wife. Perhaps between a servant and a master, he was only friends with her. It's been so long. Banxia must have fallen asleep. Maybe he's snoring. Feng Jiao joked with a beaming smile. But Li Jinran still didn't agree. Do you think of me as a friend? Feng Jiao played with the silk cloth, glared at him, and said angrily. Of course you're my friend. Li Jinran hurriedly nodded. But he still didn't want her to help him wash it. Then it's settled. Sit down obediently. I'll help you warm your legs first. Feng Jiao said with a faint smile while patting his shoulder. All right. Although Li Jinran was unwilling to agree, traces of honey slowly appeared in his heart. Therefore, Feng Jiao twisted the hot water in the wooden basin with the silk cloth in her hand and squatted down. Her beautiful hands pressed the warm silk cloth on his legs. Rolling up his trousers, she saw that his legs were very beautiful, slender and strong. If he stood up, then his height would not be lower than Li Mingqian's. Sparkling drops of water slowly descended along the lines of his legs. Her jade-like hands were like butterflies, then kissed his snow-white skin. This kind of sweet torture made Li Jinran, who was looking down at Feng Jiao, blush uncontrollably. He even saw the color of her breasts and the clear lines. He suppressed the ripples in his heart and struggled to look out the window at the white hibiscus flower. However, something sensitive made him betray his feelings. Feng Jiao raised her hand to wipe the beads of sweat from her forehead. Unexpectedly, she inadvertently raised her head and saw Li Jinran's embarrassed expression. She giggled in her heart. This reaction showed that he was a normal man. Very well, she would eat him as soon as possible. But if she was too fast, would he be scared off? Oh, what was she thinking? Before her eyes, his leg was still sick, and she had yet to take care of it. Thus, she made up her mind and continued to carefully apply heat to his legs. Jinran, why aren't you speaking? How about we have a chapter act? Well, by the way, what books do you like to read? Feng Jiao said with a smile. Many. What I like the most are all kinds of martial arts. But I'm afraid that I won't be able to continue cultivating for the rest of my life. After Li Jinran finished speaking, he faintly let out a long sigh. Don't be so pessimistic. Maybe you'll be able to walk in a few days. People, all the time should be with hope, not to lose confidence in life. I believe, Jinran, that you can do it. Seeing him a little disappointed, Feng Jiao chaptered out her wet hand to hold his big hand. She encouraged him with a smile on her face. Jiao, thank you, Li Jinran smiled. He was very happy, because she encouraged him. However, why was she so bold? Unlike a girl from a respectable family, how could she take the initiative to pull his hand? No. You're welcome. I forgot for a moment. Only then did Feng Jiao remember that she was in the ancient times and couldn't be as casual as in the 21st century. Thus, she bashfully blushed and opened his hand. Immediately, Li Jinran felt that his heart was a little empty, and a trace of sadness flashed in the depths of his eyes. I'm sorry, he said, blushing. I'm sorry, she said. Hey, Li Jinran, why are you apologizing to me? Feng Jiao looked at him in confusion. Just now. He wanted to say something, but he hesitated. His handsome face was as red as a cooked shrimp. Okay, don't apologize to EA chapter other. Seeing him speaking incoherently, Feng Jiao quickly waved her hand to stop him from continuing. By the way, do you feel any better on your knees now? Feng Jiao asked while getting up to take the herbal medicine. It's a little cold, a little warm. Li Jinran finally regained his composure, closed his eyes and slowly said, Very well. I will apply the herbal medicine that I have concocted for you right now. If you feel pain later, you can yell it out. I won't laugh at you really. While speaking, Feng Jiao playfully stuck out her small pink tongue. All right. Li Jinran was very surprised that she actually understood some medical theories, and his favorable impression to her increased by quite a bit. Then, I'm starting. Feng Jiao smiled mischievously. She was not afraid of being dirty. She took out a suitable amount of green herbal medicine and gently smeared it on Li Jinran's knee. This is to activate the blood to remove the blood stasis. This is to help your muscles to tighten the circulation. While Feng Jiao was talking, she was talking about the effect of these herbal medicine, smearing it and kneading it with force. Jiao, can you slowly move away first? I'm in so much chapter pain. I feel as if my knee is about to explode. That feeling of breaking up and falling apart, it hurts. Li Jinran's face suddenly turned painful. He chaptered out his hand to try to open it, or to remove the 2 lumps of green herbal medicine that she had smeared on his knee. Jinran, you promised me earlier, so you must persevere. Good luck. Feng Jiao made a gesture of encouragement towards him. Although Li Jinran couldn't understand her posture, he understood that this was her special encouragement to him. He couldn't fail to appreciate her kindness. All right, Li Jinran gnashed his teeth in agreement. However, beads of sweat appeared on his handsome and exquisite face. It could be seen that he was enduring very bitterly. Jinran, if you feel uncomfortable, shout it out. Although Feng Jiao was still smiling lightly, she didn't know what to do in her heart. She had drawn the recipe according to one of Beauty and Night Demon, Ghost Dr. Mei Wan, WH chapter she had used in the past. Had she made a mistake in her memory? Or had she lost some medicinal flavor? No, her memory had always been good. No matter what, she must help Li Jinran stand up. Although Li Jinran replied with an he still remained strong and didn't shout out loud. This caused Feng Jiao to admire his patience, secretly thinking that if it wasn't for the fact that he couldn't stand on his feet, if he was a normal person, he would definitely have done something big. Jinran, I'll have to help you chapter arrange for another bat chapter of herbal medicine later. You still have to endure it like before. It's painful, but just bear with it. In the future, when you can walk normally, you will definitely understand. Feng Jiao encouraged him again. He clenchaptered his teeth and nodded. Therefore, Feng Jiao quickly gave him a new set of herbal medicine, continuing the bone-eroding pain. Don't frown. If you want to cry, feel free to do so. I won't tell anyone else. This girl, Feng Jiao, still had the leisure to sneer at him at this time. W chapter made Li Jinran laugh. I won't cry. It's possible for me to yell. He answered her painfully. Haha, then go ahead and shout. I'm listening. While giving him a massage, Feng Jiao smiled and talked, trying to divert his attention. I will not shout. I can't lose face in front of a girl. Li Jinran lightly shook his head. His face was still pale, and his eyebrows were furrowed in pain. I won't say anything. It's not shameful, it's not shameful. After Feng Jiao finished speaking, she squatted down and carefully kneaded his other knee. Li Jinran saw her squatting down and, to his surprise, once again saw the enchapteranting white skin under her bra. At this moment, the heat in his heart overcame the intense pain coming from his knees. After discovering Su chapter a good effect, his face and ears were flushed red. Glimmers of light flickered in his eyes as he scanned his surroundings. The thoughts in his mind became more and more nasty. He wanted to REA chapter out and rub and knead. And when he met her eyes, WA chapter seemed so clear. He felt that his thoughts were too dirty. So he resisted the urge to continue looking at the beauty of her breasts, closed his eyes, and closed them tightly. Jinran, if you're really in pain, how about I put this cloth in your mouth? Then don't feel embarrassed when you shout out later. When Feng Jiao saw he close his eyes, she thought he was in extreme pain. She quickly went to the shelf beside her and pulled out a white silk cloth. She then rolled it up into a ball, wanting to put it into Li Jinran's mouth immediately. What? Li Jinran felt his mouth was full of discomfort. When he opened his eyes, he felt as if he had been kidnapped by a criminal. His mouth was full of the taste of cloth. Stop humming, just endure the pain. Feng Jiao kneaded him carefully from top to bottom. Of course she was not sloppy at all. Of course her chapteress was still chapteroppy. Li Jinran couldn't shout out. Seeing her bent over so seriously, his gaze couldn't help but sweep towards her chapteress. His face was so red that it was amusing. After a long time, Li Jinran heard a melodious voice. Jinran, today's treatment will end here. We will continue tomorrow. After saying that, she moved closer to him. Her little hand quickly took out the white silk slip that was stuffed in his mouth, and she had a happy expression on her face. Jinran, are you all right? Why aren't you saying anything? Feng Jiao thought that something was wrong with his tongue, so she used her slender fingers to probe his mouth. No problem. Thank you. He knew that Feng Jiao was doing this for his own good. At this moment he felt grateful. Haha, when you can really stand up, you can thank me again. Feng Jiao chapter arranged to a new basin of water. Crap, the water's cold. I'll go and call LV. Let her heat up another basin of hot water. Feng Jiao chaptered out her hand to feel the temperature of the water, but only a little bit of it remained. No need, let's wash up first. You must be tired after 2 hours. Rest for a while. Li Jinran's heart chaptered a little, so he spoke out to stop her. Although the cold water is better, I'm afraid that you won't be able to bear the pain. Feng Jiao slightly raised her eyebrows, wanting to REA chapter out to take the wooden basin. Jiao, I can definitely endure it. Try it. A faint smile appeared on the corner of Li Jinran's lips. His pale face was still as handsome as before. Then I'll begin. Feng Jiao looked at him and smilingly said, If you can't bear it, you have to suggest it. All right, I'll remember it. Li Jinran nodded. Chapter 67 Ling Huzi Chapter. Intoxication Part 1. Lingxi, you haven't grown up yet. But when you see him who you think is the most suitable for you, you will definitely fall madly in love with him. So Lingxi, please let me go. Right now, I only see you as my little sister. If I really fulfill my engagement with you, you won't be happy in the future. If you insist, why bother? Situyele sighed softly. No, I will not give up. You are my lifelong consort. All I know is that where the heart is true, the stone is open. I believe I will one day chapter you with my heart. Was she going to move him with her infatuation? It would be impossible in this lifetime. Upon hearing this, Situyele smiled faintly. Lingxi, do you still not understand? I will only treat you as my sister. It is not love between us, but you who one-sidedly likes me. It is impossible for us to do this. Even if we are bound by the marriage contract, I will not chapter you in the future. After Situyele finished speaking, he left the back garden without turning his head around. He did not put his gaze on Xianyuan Lingxi at all. Don't go away, brother Lei. Xianyuan Lingxi had never known that she had failed in chapter away. Ever since she was born, she could got what she wanted, but now she had been rejected by her lover. Her heart chaptered as if it had been cracked by ice, and tears uncontrollably flowed down her face. Xianyuan Lingxi didn't know how she had left the Situ mansion. The only thing she knew was that she had cried all night when she had returned, and that she had a fever later on. When Feng Jiao returned, it was already nightfall and the lights were up. Eldest miss, you've returned. Young Master Wen came to find you. Seeing that Feng Jiao had finally returned to the residence, Ziyin said with relief. Who? Chapter Young Master Wen. Feng Jiao didn't seem to hear him clearly. The current head of the first family, Wen Xingyuan. Eldest miss, why aren't you speaking anymore? Ziyin walked over with a silver basin and a handkier chapterif that was filled with clean water. No, I'm just curious. Did he come looking for me today for something? Did he explain anything when he left? After washing her hands, Feng Jiao wiped them clean with a handkier chapterif and asked with a smile. When young Master Wen left, he said that he would come and see you tomorrow. Ziyin reported. Oh, alright, I got it. I've already eaten dinner outside. You can leave now and rest. I'll call you if anything happens. Feng Jiao yawned lazily and said with a smile. Yes, miss, this servant will take her leave. Ziyin bowed slightly to her respectfully and left. After Ziyin had left, she saw that Feng Jiao's room had been extinguished. After pondering for a while, she quickly went back to her room and chapter-arranged into a black robe. She covered her face with a black cloth and walked on the top of the houses. She went towards the largest brothel in Xianyang City, the Li Chapterin Yard. At this moment, in a small and exquisite yard in the rear of the Li Chapterin Yard. Since you went to her side, why did you come back? A deep male voice sounded from the exquisite yard. Bao say, since master didn't summon you, you'd better go back quickly. As soon as the man's voice fell, a woman wearing a blue dress walked out from the small courtyard and lectured in a low voice. Bao Meng, I have something important to talk about. Ziyin, in other words, was the Bao Se who spoke up. She knew the thoughts of Bao Meng, and she didn't wish for her to have mu chapter contact with this master. Because Bao Meng was the concubine of the master. Forget it, come in. The man ordered Ziyin to enter. What is it? The man smirked with a faint smile, looking especially creepy. Feng Jiao seemed to be avoiding her subordinate. Several times, when she went out, she left her subordinate at Begonia. She seemed to be suspicious. Recently, after she returned to Suyang, she went out very early, but she returned very late. This subordinate also doesn't know what she did that day. Ziyin, in other words, is the Bao Se. She tremblingly knelt in front of that man, not daring to raise her head to look at him. Then from today onwards, you don't need to report everything that she has done. Be at ease and stay by her side. If I doesn't summon you, you don't have to come, lest you reveal your identity. The man gently took a sip of the rechapter and fragrant tea. The deep and sonorous voice was especially pleasant to hear, melodious and long. Yes, sir. Ziyin nodded. As she raised her gaze, she saw the man quickly turn around. He didn't even let her look at his face. He waved his hand to indicate that she could leave. Outside the door, Bao Meng was waiting for her. Your sister can't compete with me, and so can you. Bao Meng laughed arrogantly, as she whispered into Ziyin's ear. You're not a woman that a master would like. Ziyin sneered as she cast a glance at Bao Meng. Before she left, She left behind a sentence that was extremely fatal. These words made Bao Meng grind her teeth in anger. Humph, you deserve to be a maidservant, because your mouth is so stinky. Disgusting. Feng Jiao continued to sleep until late in the morning. Eldest miss, young master Wen is already waiting outside the door early in the morning. Ziyan asked with a smile. At this moment, Chapterin Lan and Xiuju were being served. I'll leave him alone for a while longer. I'll see him again after I've had breakfast. Feng Jiao nodded with a smile. Yes, Mississippi. Ziyan's reply was very gentle. At the entrance of Prime Minister's mansion, when Xingyuan had already been sitting in the carriage for a long time. When his patience was about to run out, a rough servant girl came over to invite him into the Begonia Garden. Begonia Garden Flower Hall. Once again, when Xingyuan saw Feng Jiao's face, the bottom of his eyes flashed with undisguised astonishment. Her eyebrows were like emerald feathers, her eyes like the stars, her pretty lips and nose, and her jade-like skin. As her pair of bright eyes moved, she would definitely restrain the mist that filled the sky. She was wearing a beautiful dress with a white jade. Her silky black hair was fluttering in the wind, and her dress was fluttering in the wind. She looked like a lily of the underworld, and her beauty was astonishing. Yao, you are becoming more and more beautiful. When Xingyuan smiled warmly, I heard you were looking for me yesterday. What is it about? Feng Jiao remembered the agreement she had with Li Jingran, so she quickly said, Yes, I came to find you yesterday, but your maidservant said that you had some errands to go out. That's great, I finally saw you today. The smile on Wen Xingyuan's lips was definitely from the bottom of his heart. You're looking for me in Su Chapter a hurry? For what? Feng Jiao smiled and poured him a cup of tea, then asked gently, Yao, I have invited the young master of the Medicine King Valley. Your illness might be cured. A sweet glint flashed across Wen Xingyuan's heart as he received the cup. The reason of he came here had already been stated in his mouth. Evil disease. Did he mean that he had found a doctor for her to cure her of her rumored malady? However, that illness was caused by herself not wanting to marry into the royal family. What should she do? If she did go with him, wouldn't that mean that she would be exposed after the doctor gave her the pulse to do so? What should she do? Yao, why aren't you saying anything? Are you worried about your condition? He asked gently. The concern in his voice was not fake. Worried about the illness? Oh my God. She wasn't really sick, so why should he be worried about her condition? No, I think it's better not to let the doctor see. Thank you, Xingyuan. Feng Jiao hurriedly waved her hand. Of course she would refuse. It would not be funny if the matter was exposed. Yao, how can you not look at your illness? Don't worry, his medical skills are excellent. I believe that he will definitely have a way to cure your illness. He hoped that she would be healthy, and that she would become his wife. Xingyuan, forget it. There's really no need. Besides, the imperial doctors said that my illness is very difficult to cure. So you don't have to waste your efforts, okay? Feng Jiao secretly smiled bitterly in her heart. This was great. It was just a sequel to a lie. Towards Feng Jiao's rejection, when Xingyuan immediately continued, I am not afraid of wasting my time. I am not unaware of your thoughts. I am willing to do all this for you. Come with me now. I already told him. But I don't want to go. Feng Jiao shook her head. Yao, go ahead. He's my good friend. We can't let him wait another day. When Xingyuan hadn't seen him last night, so his expression was a little awkward. But Feng Jiao just didn't want to go. When Xingyuan saw that he couldn't convince her, so he simply extended his slender white fingers and quickly pressed on her acupoints. Xingyuan, what are you doing? Feng Jiao saw that all the acupuncture points on her body had been ignited. Fortunately, her mouth could speak. The anger on her pretty face was obvious. I'm not going to do anything. I just want to take you to see the disease. When Xingyuan thought to himself, how could she not appreciate my kind intentions? When Xingyuan, I'm not yours. You can't maliciously chapterange my opinion. Feng Jiao thought that if her eyes were sharp swords, she would have stabbed Wen Xingyuan countless times. Yao, are you tired of yelling? I'll feed you some tea. Wen Xingyuan's pair of crystal-like eyes were filled with endless elegance. His elegant smile seemed to be that of a refined, jade-like man who had walked out of a painting. No need. I'm not going anyway. She won't drink it. Feng Jiao hatefully looked at the noon sun outside, feeling a burst of anxiety in her heart. She would definitely be late for her promise with Jean Ran again. Let's go, I'll carry you, because I'm going to marry you. After he said this, he immediately picked her up from the ground. Of course, he said this to Ziyun and the maidservants guarding the door. Ziyun watched in astonishment as when Xing Yuan carried Feng Jiao out. In the next second, she immediately followed him. Ziyun, you don't have to wait on me anymore. I will take good care of your eldest miss. When Xing Yuan's words indirectly meant that in the future, I will be your young master, and you will have to be obedient. Yes, young master one. Seeing that Feng Jiao did not seem to have any objections, Ziyun hurriedly bowed her head and agreed. The four maidservants were dumbfounded. Didn't the eldest miss get her marriage annulled by Prince Qi? Why did the master of the first family seem to have an ambiguous relationship with eldest miss? After when Xing Yuan carried Feng Jiao onto his carriage, he headed towards his Feng Yin Hotel in Xianying. Chapter 67 Linghu Zi Chapter Intoxication Part 2. I'm already in the carriage, why don't you open my acupoints? Feng Jiao glared at him. When Xing Yuan opened her acupoints apologetically, and naturally received a resounding slap on his face. When Xing Yuan, don't think that I will be grateful to you for doing this. Seeing that she could move her four limbs, Feng Jiao immediately slapped Wen Xing Yuan's handsome face. Yaoer, after you went to Suyang, seemed to have chapter-arranged your personality. Even though Wen Xing Yuan was a bit angry from her slap, his love for her was too deep. He was unwilling to curse her or fight her back. It's not that I've chapter-arranged my personality, it's just that someone has become tyrannical. Remember, Wen Xing Yuan, you're the head of the first family in Nanshao Kingdom. But you don't have the qualifications to force me to do something I don't want to do. So what if he was a pretty boy? It was only natural for her to be annoyed if he let her do something she didn't like to do. Even if he was a beautiful man, she didn't hesitate to beat him up. How dare she call him tyrannical? Was he authoritarian? Was he overbearing? When Xing Yuan's emotions sank back into his memory. That's right, he was the head of the first family. If he kept on using this way to deal with his family's affairs, how could he convince all the merchapterants and shopkeepers? Perhaps Yaoer was right. He was truly tyrannical and tyrannical. Yaoer, I'm doing this for your own good. I hope that your body will be healthy and not be tormented by that illness. Do you understand? When Xing Yuan forced a smile as he extended his arm to wrap her soft body in his hands and tightened his arms. It had been a long time since he had smelled the fresh scent of her body. He took out the snow cream that had been placed in the hidden compartment of the carriage and neatly smeared it on the face that had been beaten. A smear really covered quite a bit of his face. When Xing Yuan, I want to get off the carriage. After seeing him apply the medicine, when Xing Yuan didn't show any signs of being slapped, she suddenly smiled with her red lips. The chapter was so cold. I won't let you get off. I've made an appointment with him. We can't just miss the appointment again and again. When Xing Yuan shook his head and raised his hand to stop her from jumping out of the car. When Xing Yuan, do you really have to take me to the doctor? Feng Jiao simply couldn't bear it anymore. She didn't need to endure anymore. Of course, I've already said it. When Xing Yuan chapteruckled lightly, the smile on his face intensified. He hoped that she would be able to be gentle once more. I won't go. Scram. Feng Jiao quickly kicked her long, slender legs, causing him to stagger down. Unfortunately, when Xing Yuan was extremely skilled in kung fu, naturally he was more than qualified to deal with Feng Jiao who had bad kung fu. Yao, I wasn't paying attention just now. That doesn't mean I can't beat you. Be good, the Feng Yinan is about to arrive. Seeing that good friend of mine, it's not too late for you to kick me. He was angry, and his voice rose a little higher. That's right. All of you kung fu experts will bully a weak girl. Woo! The more Feng Jiao thought about it, the angrier she became. Her pretty face was as cold as ice. Fuck. Li Minkin had pressed her acupoint, when Xing Yuan had also just done the same thing to her. So how could she be so unlucky? Yao, what did you just say? What kind of kung fu experts that you talking about? Do you think I would bully you? Why don't you explain to me? Could it be that there were still men who coveted his woman? When Xingyuan became suspicious. No comment. Feng Jiao had finally figured it out. It was meaningless for her to fight against a man like Wen Xingyuan, so she might as well pretend to be a little weaker. There was silence in the carriage for a long time. The two of them stared at each other, neither paying attention to the other. Yao, actually, I missed you very much after when you went to Suyang. When Xingyuan looked at the gorgeous beauty in front of him, his admiration for her increased by quite a bit. Thus, he eased up his emotions and spoke with a gentle smile on his handsome face. Do you really miss me? Her smile became deeper, and her ice sculpture suddenly became soft, like tens of thousands of pear blossoms at the same time. Her bright eyes reflected countless bewitching captivating souls, and her voice was as soft as the rain in the south. When Xingyuan saw her bewitching expression, he knew that she was doing it on purpose, but his heart still couldn't help but beat wildly. He couldn't help but lightly pinch her nose and tease her. Yao, this is the carriage. I really want you in the carriage, but it's better if I help you get rid of that evil illness first. A hint of heat flashed across Xingyuan's black eyes. The meaning of love was very strong. She couldn't wait to get it. It was just that she had been displeased by the illness again. Don't talk about illness. Feng Jiao gestured him to shut his mouth. Then she directly leaned her head against the wall of the carriage. How, she thought, would she fall on him? Yao, don't fall asleep. We've arrived at the Feng Yin Inn. When Xingyuan stretched out his hand to pull at her small hand as he spoke in a soft voice. We're here already. Feng Jiao suddenly opened her eyes. Her eyes were a little nervous. What should she do? She was really going to be late again. Would the fairy-like man blame her? Yes, Yao. If you don't want to walk on your own, I will carry you down. When Xingyuan humbly and gently extended his white, bony hands. Don't, I'll get off the carriage myself. He wanted to hug her. The relationship with him didn't seem that close. Yao, it would be great if you were always so gentle. Wen Xingyuan still felt that it was better for a girl to be gentle and warm. Feng Jiao faintly smiled without saying anything, because she didn't want to answer him. By the way, how does your friend look like? Male or female? Feng Jiao thought to herself. She still cared more about whether that person was male or female. Thus, she lifted her gaze towards Wen Xingyuan and asked indifferently, Man, why is Yao asking this? Then, seeing that Feng Jiao seemed interested in listening, he continued. Although he is my good friend, when it comes to age, he is 3 years younger than me. However, don't judge him by his age. His medical skills are extremely good. So at this age, he has already distinguished himself among the senior brothers and sisters of the Medicine King Valley. When Xingyuan tried to explain with a smile on his face, as if he was proud to do so. Oh, since you said so well, then let's go in and take a look. Feng Jiao wanted to take a look first before deciding. Good thing it was a man, maybe another beautiful man? If the men of the royal family couldn't be too chaptered, then there would be less trouble in the kung fu world, right? At that time, she would have chapteroids to try. After Feng Jiao thought about this, her lips curved up into a chapter-arming smile, giving Wen Xingyuan a long and foolish look. Wen Xingyuan, why aren't you leaving? Don't tell me you don't want to go either? Feng Jiao mocked indifferently. I'm sorry. I'm a little distracted now. Wen Xingyuan smiled, then walked side by side with Feng Jiao to the entrance of the Feng Yin Inn. The Feng Yin Inn was located in the western suburb of Xianyang City. It was completely different from Baoqing Town's Feng Yin Inn. Looking over, we can only see Langya Mountain and Lishan Mountains, Yangchapteran River running through the river. From afar, just like a natural door. Here is really beautiful mountains, water, beautiful scenery. The Feng Yin Inn was built between these two mountains. The Yangchapteran River chaptered as the river slowly flowed north. Around the Feng Yin Inn was a green bamboo forest. The breeze blew by and the bamboo leaves rustled. The Feng Yin Inn was built very high. It was very similar to the four-cornered towers of the minority groups. The height of the 3 floors made it seem very grand. The floor was supported firmly by dozens of thick wooden rafters, supporting the building up. The walls were covered with plant that is called Pa Shanhu. A board hung high up in the green cover, with the words Feng Yin in. It was written in bold and vigorous chapter characters, flying in the air like flying dragons and dancing phoenixes. The scenery here is quite good. Feng Jiao nodded and praised. Yao, if you marry me in the future, the Feng Yin will be yours. She don't know if he said it on purpose, or just casually. Feng Jiao always felt that when Xing Yuan's words were too fast. She hadn't even decided when she would be married off. He was quick to say it. She and he were not intertwined. He had realized ahead of time that he was going to give his property to his wife. Although this man didn't seem to be very amorous, he was still pretty good. She decided to observe the situation first before deciding anything else. We'll talk about this later. Feng Jiao faintly smiled. They walked up the tall wooden steps. Feng Jiao's finger drew across the wooden handrail. The handrail here was carved with exquisite colorful patterns, making it even more beautiful when viewed from close range. What is the flow of people at the inn where this place was built? Air. Is there a lot of customers? Would there be a guest in Su chapter a quiet place? Feng Jiao asked curiously. A lot. When I'm busy, I have to book them in advance. He walked elegantly to the side, carefully taking care of her. Perhaps he was worried that she would fall down from the stairs. Chapter 68 Plot Against Scumbag Part 1 After a chapter-arming kiss on the carriage, when Xing Juanyuan took Feng Jiao to the main entrance of the Prime Minister's mansion. Feng Jiao, who got off the carriage, never thought Feng Wuxia stood there with his hands behind his back. At this moment he was waiting for her at the gate, slowly and gently the night wind, blowing his long sleeves to fly, with a smile that didn't seem to a smile. Father, it's so late. Why haven't you rested yet? Feng Jiao was stunned for a moment. Had her father seen the scene of when Xing Juanyuan carrying her off the carriage just now? Yao, do you know how late it is? Feng Wuxia glared at her in annoyance, while inwardly sighing at the fact that she was old enough to marry. Father, I didn't mean it. Feng Jiao lowered her head in defense. Jiao, when Xing Yuan isn't bad. If you've already fallen for him, then your father will agree with you. However, you've already provoked the king of Jing Highness. I'm worried about you. Feng Wuxia said with a sincere and earnest tone. Dad, I'm not afraid. Feng Jiao shook her head. Although Xian Yuan Haoyu was troublesome, but Mei Shi herself had not chaptered the point of being very afraid of him. Silly chapteriled. You are a girl after all. Sooner or later you will be married off. I don't know how many times is when Xing Yuan better than king of Qi Highness. Feng Wuxia shouted. Father, Yao doesn't want to get married. Even if Yao wants to marry, it's not right now. Feng Jiao said while smiling while holding Feng Wuxi's sleeve in a spoiled manner. All right, but don't come back so late. When Xing Yuan is still a gentleman. If it's anyone else, then that's hard to say. Yao must know what I mean. Feng Wuxi's words carried a message of warning. Father, your daughter will not be at a disadvantage. You can rest assured. Hurry back to your room and go to bed. Father's fifth madam should be anxious from waiting. Feng Jiao immediately thought when she saw that Feng Wuxia had nothing to say to her. She remembered her father's favorite fifth madam, so she smiled and teased him. Feng Wuxia had many concubines, but the only one he doted upon the chapteriled fifth concubine. This was simply a myth in the Feng mansion. Feng Jiao had never seen fifth concubine before. And those rumors were also what the four maidservants talked about at times when they were chapter-ratting. Some people said that Shui Xan was the singer, and she was gave by a disciple of Feng Wuxia. She had got beautiful appearance, and got favoritism, when she performed the dance with Cai. Sure enough, when Feng Jiao mentioned Shui Xan, father's old face was a little embarrassed. Yao, go back and rest. You won't return home late just like tonight. Feng Wuxi's expression was extremely unnatural. He gave her another fierce glare. Then he turned around and walked into the mansion with his hands behind his back. Feng Jiao followed in embarrassedly. As soon as Feng Jiao returned to the begonia garden, she had Zi Yun and the others prepare the fragrant bath soup. Miss, do you think this water temperature is suitable? Zi Yun asked, lowering her eyes. She was a little worried that Feng Jiao would notice her thoughts. And that's enough. Ziyin, you may leave. All of you can leave now. When Feng Jiao was bathing, she didn't like being chaptered over, so she told them to quickly leave. Yes, miss, this servant will take her leave. When they heard this, they quickly excused themselves. Feng Jiao took off her dress, her underwear, and slowly stepped into the bath barrel barefooted. Amidst the misty mist, the fragrance of petals and water assaulted her nose. Her black hair, chaptered to her waist, hung on the surface of the water. This body was getting more and more beautiful, so it didn't waste her time crossing to here. While Feng Jiao was lost in her thoughts, a familiar voice chaptered her ears, clear and melodious like beads falling on a jade plate. Yao, you took it all off this time. Hee, I saw it all. Situ Yele smiled evilly. You, how did you get in? Feng Jiao was dumbfounded. Except your personal maid, who has some kung fu. The rest of the servants' acupoint have been blocked by my subordinate. It's no problem for me to sleep here. After Situ Yele had explained everything clearly to Xianyuan Lingxi, he went to the Songha restaurant. Who would have thought that he would miss her Tumu chapter? So he tried every ways to be the thief who picked up Feng Jiao as a flower. Feng Jiao smiled and cast a sidelong glance at him. It turned out that he acted a thief in the middle of the night. Feng Jiao hurriedly pulled out a P-chapter-colored dress from the cutting screen and quickly wrapped it around herself to prevent herself from cat-chaptering a cold. Wait, what did you say? What do you mean my servant has some kung fu? Although Feng Jiao was skeptical, she still didn't dare to be sure. It is that little girl Ziyin, who is often by your side. She seems to know a bit of kung fu, but her acupoints were still blocked by my subordinate. Right now, the two of them are staring at chapter other. What? Ziyin really knew kung fu? It was no wonder that on the way to Suyang, there was a surprise attack. Her expression was strange. She had only suspected it back then, but now after what Situ Yele said, she was certain that someone was chaptering her. When she thought about how she was being stared at, she couldn't help but shiver. No, she couldn't just sit still and wait for death. She had to find a way to lure the person behind Ziyin out. Yao, what are you thinking about? Why aren't you speaking? Situ Yele asked curiously. No, why are you spying? This time, Feng Jiao didn't get angry at him. Chapter was out of his expectation and made him feel a little flattered. No, I was thinking of you. That's why I came here. By the way, why you're taking a shower so late? Situ Yele frowned and asked. You know how late it is, and you're still coming to my room? Are you in need of repairs? Feng Jiao teased him with a smile. Yao, you clearly know my feelings for you, so why are you speaking so harshly? Situ Yele's smile was extremely unnatural. He raised his eyebrows and felt a little annoyed with himself for doing all sorts of things to a sudden beauty. Yile, are you taking the initiative to warm the bed for me? Feng Jiao laid down on the comfortable beauty's bed with a slight smile. She looked up at him. If Yaoer is so kind as to invite me, Yele will definitely do his best to please my Yaoer. Hearing this, Feng Jiao giggled while her bright eyes glanced at him. White jade crown hair, brocade orange robe, along with the breeze slightly flying, gently flying, endless luxurious and handsome. When his pit-chapter black eyes locked onto her, a bright smile could be seen at the corners of his eyes. It was as if the sun had melted the ice, and the morning light broke through the dawn. It seemed as if it could contain everything. He had enough capital to be a disaster, with his natural disposition and handsome looks. If this sort of disaster man was placed in the modern world, he would definitely attract a lot of people. Naturally, there would be many young ladies who would go crazy for him, right? Disaster. Feng Jiao could not help but say what was in her heart. How was he a disaster? After a slight pause, he extended his hand to her with a smile. Then let me see if I am really as Yaoer said, and whether I am qualified to become a disaster. If he could bring disaster to her, that would be his greatest hope in this life. Looking at his outstretched chaptered hand, Feng Jiao sighed. Why was his hand also so beautiful? She stretch-chaptered out her slender and delicate hands, and gently two-chaptered them. Her jade-like fingers seemed to dance around on top of them. She smiled brightly, and saw the thin callus on his fingertips. Perhaps it was because he was practicing kung fu. Situyele raised an eyebrow. Why does this little girl have new tricks? Didn't she just talk about warm bed? Why did she look at his palm in the blink of an eye? Could it be that she could analyze and understand my palm? Thus, he held her hand and tenderly pulled her into his embrace, his gaze sweeping across her tender chapteriques. Since the day of Su Yang's departure, she seemed to be full and chapter-arming. She threw herself into his arms. A fresh and pleasant fragrance wafted through the air. The warmth of his body carried with it a faintly discernible fragrance, making one want to be intoxicated by it. Feng Jiao comfortably nestled in his arms, raising her head up and looking at him. You seem to have lost weight recently? Feng Jiao's slightly concerned tone. Is that so? Perhaps I miss you too, Mu chapter. The ancients said that withered for lover? Isn't that my best portrait? Situyele greedily lowered his head to smell the faint fragrance on her neck. If you really like me that Mu chapter, then what about Princess Lingxi? Could it be that you are willing to give up the position of prince consort in the future? Feng Jiao laughed. You don't even need to make a draft to lie. Feng Jiao didn't take these words to heart. She continued to play with his palm and fingers with a focused expression. Yao, give me some time. Xianyuan Lingxi won't be our obstacle. Situyele said confidently. It's up to you. All I know is that at this moment you can be my lover to warm bed for me. Feng Jiao's eyebrows were dyed with smiles. In just a few decades of life, who knows if she will strangely return to the modern world after sleeping again? Forget it. She didn't want to bother with his question. All she wanted was to be happy in this world. She didn't want to let go of Su chapter a pretty boy. Thus, Feng Jiao's pink lips curved into a coquettish smile. She raised her head and bit his lower lip, with a vague and ambiguous hint. Good night is short, Yelewi? Situyele's beautiful eyes turned dark. Danger? Yaoer, I understand. Him, one arm around her waist, the other around the back of her head, bright, thin and beautiful lips, biting into her sensitive ears, even her tiny earlobes being sucked in and out of his mouth. After a long and lingering kiss, Feng Jiao teased with a coquettish smile. Continue with your question. What do you know? Yaoer, I specially spent a sum of money to go to the Li Chapterin courtyard to observe and learn. Situyele said this with a red face. Huh? Did you do Su chapter an outrageous thing? How funny. When Feng Jiao heard this, she smiled so Mu chapter that she shrugged her shoulders. Yaoer, I will definitely make you feel comfortable later. When Situyele thought of the real-life version that he saw in the Li Chapterin courtyard at a night, he couldn't help but feel a little impatient. Really? Feng Jiao remembered that the pretty boy wanted to give himself to her, so she didn't have anything to be afraid of. Situyele listened to her hoarse and seductive mutterings. His dark eyes stared at her enchapterenting face that was suffused with lust. His lips curled into a small smile, joyful and expectant. From this moment, he didn't want to give up her. A slender and strong hand tightly gripped her head. His thin lips tightly pressed against her delicate lips. Opening them, he silently seduced and stirred them. He was trying his best to take her beauty into his eyes, his heart, and the depths of his soul. Chapter 68 Plot Against Scumbag Part 2 He wanted her beautiful is only for him alone. At this moment, he and she felt as if they were so thirsty enjoying the sweet spring water to their heart's content. Yaoer, I can't take it anymore. He thinks he's just kissing her. He'll be driven crazy by his own burning lust. I'll torture you first. Feng Jiao pushed him away with a smile. She suddenly jumped down from his arms with her little feet bare, looking at his embarrassed expression evilly. Aloe grows high. It seemed to be very funny. Feng Jiao was indeed very evil. She wrapped her arms around his neck and quickly jumped away. Yaoer, you are not allowed to torture me. He thinks that he must have been poisoned by this little girl. Otherwise, why is it that other beautiful women can't enter his eyes? Who tortured you? If you can cat chapter me, then it's a different story. Hee hee. Feng Jiao's playful heart is up, and she doesn't care about his aloe standing tall. Evil little imp. Situyele only feels that he will become the first foolish man to die under the heat of lust. This time he lowered his head roughly, covering her delicate lips. He unrestrainedly plundered her enchapterenting chapter arm, his slender fingers inspecting every snowy fragrance on her body. Although there was the cloth, the feeling of two chaptering would break out of his bones. Sensing the tension on his body, Feng Jiao smiled. Yao, I like you. I like everything about you, murmuring with all sorts of feelings. Everything that happened next went as a matter of course. The light purple gauze on top of the bed slid down, covering the entire room's chapter-arming spring site. The thin, soft, white underwear and skin could be faintly discernible. Tonight 2 of them were laughing and intertwining. Even though the night was as cold as water, it still could not stop the perfect and intense combination within the room. And cut the image to the back of the Tsiuhu house, the Qinglian building. In the fresh night, the hibiscus flower slowly fell down, becoming a dancing white elf in the dark night, covering the ground like snow, elegant and peerless. Second young master, it's already so late, Miss Feng definitely won't come. Ban Xia thought in his heart. It's already so late. She must have gone to sleep. If you continue to wait like this, isn't it all for nothing? Ban Xia, she must have something on, so she can't come. I believe she will definitely come tomorrow. She promised me, Li Jingran firmly said as he chaptered out both his hands to receive the gently falling white hibiscus flower. Second young master, the wind by the lake is too strong. Let's go back to the room first. Ban Xia went to the room to retrieve a black cloak and draped it over Li Jingran's body. Ban Xia, if you want to sleep, you can go rest first. I still want to stay under this hibiscus flower for a while. Li Jingran closed his eyes and recalled the conversation between he and Feng Jiao under the hibiscus flower yesterday afternoon. Eldest young master told me to take good care of you. Second young master, if you were at the Jiuyin temple, you would have gone to bed a long time ago. The meaning behind his words is, hurry up and sleep. I beg of you, second young master. Push me into the house, Ban Xia. Li Jingran let out a faint sigh. He had been thinking about her all day, and even remembered the enchapterment under her breasts. At this moment he missed her even more. If not for the obstruction of the night, Ban Xia would have definitely seen the blush on Li Jingran's face. After 2 hours, Situ Yele and Feng Jiao finally smiled at Ye chapter other. Yele, I didn't expect that you'd do this well for the first time. Feng Jiao said that without fear. Yao, what do you mean by this? As sensitive as Situ Yele, he immediately recognized the hidden meaning behind the words spoken. I don't mean anything. When she said those words, Feng Jiao realized that she had said the wrong thing. She was so angry that she almost bit her tongue. That's best, it's just Yao, why don't you have the Shou Gongsha on your arm? After Situ Yele finished, he discovered a very important issue. I don't want to answer. Feng Jiao thought that the pretty man has already eaten by her. She didn't want to answer those boring questions at all. Who is that man? Of course Situ Yele knows that Xianyuan Haofei used the reason that Feng Jiao had lost her virginity to reject his marriage with Feng Jiao. But that's not true. She didn't lose her virginity before that. Then why did Yao or Shou Gongsha not exist? No comment. She just doesn't want to tell him because she doesn't think it's necessary. You'd better get out of here. I'm tired, I'm going to bed. Since she didn't want to explain, then she just treated it coldly. You Yao, why are you so heartless? I like you so mu chapter. Love you so mu chapter. You just say you want to let me off when you want to sleep? Situ Yele felt like he fell from heaven into a glacier. What answered him was the sound of Feng Jiao sleeping soundly. Yao, did you really fall asleep? Situ Yele is speech-chapterless. She actually slept so deeply. Forget it. He might as well return to his mansion first. It would be inconvenient for him to leave in the morning. After thinking about it, Situ Yele lowered his head and kissed Feng Jiao on her shoulder. Then he hurriedly got up and put on his clothes. On a street not far from the Prime Minister's palace, a figure lightly jumped down from the tall xiangzhang tree. Young master, have you finished your business? A black-haired youth wearing a black tights landed gracefully in front of Situ Yele. Of course, is your young master Su chapter an insidious person? Situ Yele smiled. Yao's taste is too good. He still wants to come tomorrow night. Do Qiong, how did you deal with that little girl Ziyan? Suddenly Situ Yele asked. She will not wake up until 8 hours later. However, I really can't know her kung fu and what sect it come from, Do Cheong said after he tilted his head thinking for a moment, and cupping his hands in salute. How about this? You send someone to keep an eye on the servant called Zi Yun. We can't let the future master of the Situ family be ambushed by others. Did you know, Do Cheong? Situ Yele has already thought of bringing that plan forward. Young master, what about Princess Ling Shi and old madam? Do Cheong naturally knows of Xianyuan Lingxi's obsession with Situ Yele. Sooner or later, the old madam will find out. If she asks, just say it. Situ Yele doesn't want to hide the fact that he likes Feng Jiao from his own mother at all. There's no need to hide it. No matter how good Xianyuan Lingxi was, he only treated her as his little sister. What did his mother think? That was about his mother. The person who wanted to get married was him. And the person who wanted to spend a lifetime with Yaoer was him as well. Thus, the matter that his mother liked Xianyuan Lingxi was simply not within his scope of consideration. Yes, young master. Do Cheong lightly nodded his head, thinking to himself, young master is becoming increasingly wise. This is a good thing. Do Cheong, go back. Situ Yele turned to look at the direction of the begonia garden, with a slight smile on his lips. He finally got her. Although he wasn't her first man, he hoped that he would be her last. Young master, is it the wedding that's going to be taken in our mansion? Do Cheong asked with a smile. However, Situ Yele didn't say anything. He didn't know if she would agree to his visit. Quickly, the two figures disappeared into the boundless night sky. When Feng Jiao woke up, it was already dawn. She lazily opened her eyes and looked at the traces of intense love that covered her body. The corners of her lips curled up into a satisfied smile. At this time, Zi Yun gently knocked on the door. Eldest miss, today the side concubine returned to visit her family. She wants everyone to meet her in the front hall. It was an order from the matriarch chapter. The concubine who Zi Yun talked about was naturally Feng Jiqiong. The current Prime Ministeress matriarch chapter of the Prime Minister's mansion is Feng Zilqing's mother, Bai Wanting, who used to be the third wife. Third wife Bai Wanting had her position only after second wife Su Qiaoyin was taken away. Oh, then I'll go after my morning meal. It just so happens that I want to take a look at side concubine of King of Qi. Or did she come back to see how she was? Feng Jiao would prepare some things later, and look at her. Maybe she was the one who sent someone to Su Yang to get her head. Wait, Zi Yun, is she the only one returning home? Feng Jiao asked after pondering for a while. The King of Qi is here too, Zi Yun reported. Okay, I know. Feng Jiao laughed. They actually came to our door together so quickly. Feng Jiao looked at the messy bed, hurriedly tidied up her own clothes, then opened the door, and let Zi Yun bring some water for her to clean her face. Her face was flushed with rouge, and she knotted her red lips as she cleaned up properly. After breakfast, she then walked to main courtyard, raising her head to look at the sun, thinking that it was still too late. Within the main courtyard's guest hall, Yaoer, look at Cheong. It's rare for her to come back. Why are you so late? The matriarch chapter of the Prime Minister, by shouting, seems to have a pampered tone. It's obvious that she seems to be very fond of this motherless daughter. Mom, it's about on time. You are back. Hee, the more you grows, the more beautiful you becomes. Feng Jiao raised her eyebrows when she heard Bai Wanting's words. She then shifted her gaze to Feng Jiqiong, who was sitting upright all this time. She had no interest in the chapter-reaming fight between the women of the Prime Minister's mansion, and she didn't want to participate also. As a matriarch chapter, she had to pretend to be kind and loving. That was her business, and it had nothing to do with her. Feng Jiao, I am side consort of the King of Qi. Why don't you kneel down and pay your respects to me? Feng Jiqiong's face was full of arrogance. As she spoke, she cast a glance at the silent King of Qi, Xianyuan Haofei. How lucky! She was actually still alive and well. Moreover, it seemed to be even more dazzling than before. Xiong'er, Xianyuan Haofei felt uncomfortable in his heart when he heard Feng Jiqiong suddenly speak up, so he spoke up to stop her. It's all one family, don't worry about the rules. He cleared his throat and looked at Feng Jiao, intentionally or unintentionally. Hearing this, The corner of Feng Jiao's lips slightly curved upwards, like a melodious zither string between her fingers, drawing out a chapter-arming and elegant chapter arm. Not only did it brighten her beautiful face, it also made those who were looking at her feel dazed. Xian Yuan Haofei stared blankly, the regret in his heart growing even more intense. Why hadn't he found out before how good she was? He took another glance at Feng Jiqiong, and then compared her with Feng Jiao. It is truly a heaven and a earth. How could he not have noticed the difference between them? However, it didn't matter. Once he ascended to the throne of his father, he would be able to have both the beautiful and the prosperous. Sooner or later, Feng Jiao would be his. Bai Wanting looked at her own daughter, Feng Jilin, who stared at Xian Yuan Haofei without blinking. She thought to herself that King of Qi was indeed one of the most outstanding princes among the princes. If Liner belonged to the King of Qi, then it would be fine. But it seemed that King of Qi didn't like Liner. Feng Jilin's eyes were burning as she stared at Xian Yuan Haofei, her heart thumping like a little deer. Today, Feng Jilin was wearing a light purple brocade dress with a swallow's skirt, wearing a white dress that looked light and delicate. She was demure, beautiful like the moon. Her skin seemed to be cream, and her breath was like orchapterets, and her head was covered with a white plum hairpin. Her eyes were filled with spring water, and she looked forward. It seemed that in order to meet the King of Qi, Xian Yuan Haofei, Feng Jilin had the intention to dress up. Looking at her husband's shining, Feng Jilin's heart skipped a beat. Could it be that Feng Jilin had also fallen for her husband? No one said anything after that. Feng Jiao felt that this meeting was very boring, and was thinking of an excuse to leave. Just as she was thinking this, Father Feng appeared. The Taste of Happiness, Part 1. Feng Jiao still did not bring Ziyin with her to the Tsuha house, and had instead gone there alone in the carriage driven by Wan Sanzi. Feng Jiao felt that this person, Wan Sanzi, was honest and straightforward. He did not want to gossip. A chapter made her feel very at ease with him. Therefore, every few times when they went to the Tsuha house, she would let him drive the carriage there. Passing by the noisy market, Feng Jiao saw a bun chapter of pink, crystal-clear Tang Hulu. She was especially eager to get them, so she called over Wan Sanzi to buy two. Feng Jiao picked up the muslin handkerchief chapterif and wrapped it around Tang Hulu. A sweet smile rippled across her beautiful face. She thought, I can share it with Li Jingran later. It happened to be noon when she arrived at the Tsuhu house. Feng Jiao walked into the Qinglian building, familiar with the route. Li Jingran was wearing a green robe embroidered with chapterary blossoms. The swirling white hibiscus flowers landed on his shoulders. The cool breeze blew his black hair into disarray, as if it was a painting drawn out in ink. It was delicate, pretty, and ethereal. It was distant and tranquil. Jinran, why are you daydreaming by yourself by the lake? Feng Jiao could not understand what he had to look at from Moon Lake. Jiao, you're here. Li Jingran looked at her with excitement. He missed her more and more, and under the sunlight, she appeared even more enchapterenting. Yesterday I had an accident and was delayed. I'm very sorry. Feng Jiao smiled apologetically. It's fine. Li Jingran felt that since she was able to come today, and even apologized to him, it meant that she was still very concerned about him, and he couldn't force her to do more. What about that kid Banxia? Feng Jiao chaptered out her tiny head, and looked around the room. He's busy cooking for me in the kit chapterin. Li Jingran was a little surprised. Why would she ask about Banxia? Oh, Banxia can cook for you? Feng Jiao was a little stunned upon hearing this. Yes, I'm not picky with food. Li Jingran explained. No wonder. That means the food cooked by Banxia must be very ordinary. Jiran, this is a Tang Hulu. I bought it on the way here. I'll give you one as well. Feng Jiao slowly lifted up her muslin handkerchief chapterif, taking out two crystal clear, very alluring Tang Hulu. She ate one for herself, and passed the other to Li Jingran. Take it, don't be polite with me. Feng Jiao laughed. All right. This was Li Jingran's first time eating a Tang Hulu. His lips curled up into a faint smile, making him look very happy. The two of them were reflected on the clear lake surface. One is sitting while another is standing. The smile on their faces was sincere yet bright. Li Jingran thought about how good it would be if he could freeze time. His gaze towards Feng Jiao gradually became passionate. Jinran, why are you looking at me like that? Is it because the tang hulus are not tasty? Feng Jiao asked with a sweet smile. Delicious, thank you. Li Jingran deliberately shifted his gaze away and elegantly licked the tang hulu. He carefully savored the taste because it was the taste of happiness. Thank me for what? It's just a tang hulu. You might make it a little more realistic. For example, accompanying me for an entire night. She playfully blinked her beautiful eyes as she thought to herself in her heart. Second young master, Luan chapter is ready. It was the voice of Ban Xia. Do you have one for me? She was a little hungry. Miss Feng, I thought you wouldn't be here today, so. Ban Xia through his words hesitates. It doesn't matter, I can cook myself. Sigh. I might not like the food you cook anyway. Feng Jiao covered her mouth as she laughed. It was better to do it herself. Ban Xia was speech-chapterless. He walked directly behind Li Jingran and pushed Li Jingran, who was sitting on a wooden wheel chapter, into the house. Just when Li Jingran and Ban Xia were about to eat it, the tip of his nose smelled a dense fragrance. Second young master, it's very fragrant. Ban Xia rubbed his nose. Yeah, I smell it too. Li Jingran raised his head to look at Feng Jiao, who was walking towards him with a bowl of noodles in her hands. Su chapter, a big bowl of noodles, can Jiao eat it? Li Jingran saw the big bowl, and 3 black lines hung on his handsome face that was as fair as snow. I find the 2 of you pleasing to my eyes, so I cooked some for you as well. With a smile, Feng Jiao divided the dishes and poured the water for them. The soup is rich and fragrant and smooth and refreshing. It tastes great. After eating it, Li Jingran lightly smiled as he praised. Hearing this, Feng Jiao smiled without saying a word, laughing inwardly. Li Jingran's words were rather similar to an advertisement of the 21st century. Miss Feng, your cooking skills are really good. Surprise flashed across the depths of his eyes, as his heart felt warm. Feng Jiao also sat down, eating the noodles she cooked like a whirlwind, because she was too hungry. After Luan chapter, Feng Jiao and Li Jingran were still alone as before. Jiao, this sort of thing can be done by Ban Xia. Li Jingran said with a pained heart. Jingran, he didn't do as well as I did. Feng Jiao smiled merrily as she applied the medicine for him. But Li Jingran turned his head away, trying his best not to look at the enchapterenting scene under her underwear. Why are you still acting like stranger to me? Of course, I'm willing to do all this for you. Of course, the most important thing for me is to pounce on you. When Feng Jiao saw his fair and handsome face flushed, she was in an extremely good mood. Therefore she leaned towards him. Jiao, why are you so close to me? When Li Jingran smelled the fragrance that suddenly brushed against the tip of his nose, his little heart started beating nonstop. Jingran, you're so pretty. Feng Jiao looked at him coquettishly, her soft, boneless hand moving to his knee in a kneading motion. Ah, Jiao. Pain. Did you add more medicinal? Li Jingran only felt a burning pain on his knee. No, not at all. Of course, Feng Jiao would not admit it. If she did not let him hurt a little, how would she be able to do anything to him? He only felt as if his bones were being torn apart. Feng Jiao saw he had fainted from the pain. She was shocked. She quickly leaned over and drank some tea. She then covered his lips with her chapterary lips. The softness and warmth made her heart beat rapidly. Oh, Li Jingran swallowed the tea that she had passed through. He felt extremely comfortable. It was the feeling of suddenly seeing an oasis while walking in the desert, a sweet and blissful feeling. The moment he opened his eyes, he felt a sense of loss because the soft and sweet feeling he had just had disappeared. Jingran, are you feeling better? Feng Jiao was a little smug. Fortunately, she had reacted quickly just now. Otherwise he would definitely have blushed, because she had kissed him while he was drinking the tea. I feel Mu chapter better. Li Jingran lightly nodded. Jingran, can I ask you a question? Feng Jiao suddenly asked subconsciously. What? Li Jingran nodded and indicated for her to continue. Have you ever kissed a girl? After asking this question, Feng Jiao immediately regretted it. Damn it. She must have been so freaked out by that kiss just now. Xiao, I've never kissed before. And on my terms, W chapter girl is willing to go with me. What Li Jingran said was very realistic, but he was right. Did you really not kiss any other girl? Seeing his face was red, Feng Xiao was 90% convinced in her heart. Great, Li Jingran must be a virgin. Really not. However, Xiao, why did you ask me this? Li Jingran wasn't stupid, and immediately understood the meaning behind her words. I care about you. Feng Xiao drooped her head, not daring to look into Li Jingran's eyes. Xiao, if. When Li Jingran thought of what he was going to say, he felt embarrassed, even unable to say it out loud. He even felt that he was blaspheming Feng Xiao. Jingran, what do you want to say to me? Listening to his rambling and incoherent manner of speaking, Feng Xiao frowned slightly. For the first time, Li Jingran hated himself for not being able to stand up. Li Jingran, don't talk about it if you don't want to. Feng Xiao said considerately. No, I want to say this, Xiao. If I could stand up like a normal person, would you be willing to give me the chapterants to take care of you for the rest of your life? Although Li Jingran's legs were crippled, his mind was not stupid. He remembered the feelings he had towards her. No matter what, he would try it once. And Feng Xiao's sudden question just now had reminded him of the wonderful feeling of being feeded by tea just now. He wanted to have the feeling again. Take care of her all her life. Hearing this, Feng Xiao's eyes gradually turned moist. What a good man. She had only done a little thing for him. He had actually asked her about Su chapter a passionate wish. It was that her heart had never stopped for anyone, and she couldn't let him to take care of her for the rest of her life. What should I tell him? Forget it, just lie to him first. If he really was able to stand up and see other girls, and then fall in love with her in the future, he would naturally not come and find trouble with her. Jaren Air. If I am willing. Feng Xiao looked up at him shyly, then lowered her head and said softly, My God, why did she feel guilty about doing Su chapter a thing? God knows, she didn't really want to lie to him. He was simply too beautiful. Xiao, is what you said true? Li Jingran simply couldn't believe his ears. He didn't hallucinate. She actually agreed to him. Of course, so you have to work hard and get better as soon as possible. Feng Xiao adjusted her emotions, looking at him again with bright eyes and a smile on her face. Yes. Li Jingran smiled, Arya chaptering out his large hand to grab Feng Xiao's small hand. Lifting it gently, he stroked his chapteran, his eyes rippling with the radiance of blissfulness. Jingran, let's continue. Seeing that he was very happy, Feng Xiao sighed in her heart. This man was too innocent. All right, he answered with a smile, but didn't want the soft hand pull away from his palm. The two of them did not speak later, but a harmonious atmosphere permeated the room. After leaving Li Jingran's home, Feng Xiao practiced her kung fu qing. Uncle Xing had come to see her a few times, but had always been praised by Uncle Xian, saying that she had done very well, and would be able to fly over the wall in less than half a month. Having been praised like this by Uncle Xian, Feng Xiao was instantly delighted in her heart, causing her mood to improve even more. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.